All right, what is up, everybody? We are live, the Sunday night edition of the REMINGTOM pod, and we've got, of course, the round of 32 on in the background. We may have to do a little refresh of the perfect bracket tracker here because the St. John's, Kansas game just ended. Shout out to the Johnnies. They are going to their first Sweet 16 in... oh, there we go, chat. Oh, no. We're down to one. They said first Sweet 16 since 1999? Hey, yo. We know, of course, that, there has been those storylines of Rick Pitino, bringing St. John's back, as you would, a guy restoring the program. But I guess I hadn't realized it'd been 25 years since they had been, again, that far in the tournament. We got to look for Kansas, though, as well, too, because Kansas is in a little bit of a sneaky spot over the last couple of years. But, yeah, shout out. We've got one perfect bracket remaining, according to the ESPN bracket tracker. It does look like, though, according to this, he's not at risk for either of these games. He's gonna get these games right no matter what. I guess I don't I don't understand that, but I guess can we see the bracket? Can we see what's going on here? I guess we can do a going forward a Sweet 16 plus bracket. It looks like get a little a revenge. Our bracket is looking a little bit better. Like we said. Some of our later teams were some of the, like our Sweet 16 teams might have been the only teams we got right. The Final Four teams that were looking okay. It seems like a lot of those teams are advancing still. So our bracket is slowly scoring higher in the rankings, but it's still pretty low overall at this point. It is what it is. So, we need to look at this perfect bracket and be jealous and see what happened. But yeah, we're officially on the ESPN count down to one perfect bracket remaining after St. John's gets Kansas. I mean, St. John's, I feel like is, and I guess the early line for St. John's Duke minus 6.5. I guess, Duke's probably going to be to some degree of a heavy favorite against basically anybody they play. I mean, once we start getting down to the, those games, I guess I don't know necessarily what the line of that Michigan Duke game was earlier in the regular season. That was a neutral court game as well, too. So that'd be, I guess, can we go back and double check that one here and see what was going on, because that would be a good comparison. I mean, Michigan was number 3, or Michigan was number 1 in the nation, then Duke was number 3, and then it flipped after that game because Duke. I was going to give Michigan the win. Unfortunately, I guess we can't do that. It is registered as what it is in history. We can get AI to go back and change the results of the game. We'll have to see there, but yeah, in terms of obviously again the overall seeding, the strengths of the teams, also some injuries, but I think both the teams have lost guards as well too since then. So Michigan minus 3.5 going into that game. Hey, yo, chat, you hate to see it. So I'm assuming now Duke would be if that would have to be the national title game as well too at this point with the way that they're seated in the bracket if they were to rematch. But I'm assuming that would be now Duke minus 3.5, maybe minus 3, something in those range. But Era's, I guess, and Duke was, again, ended up being the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. But you could see in a national championship game against Arizona, maybe Arizona being favored. And I guess depending on how well, Houston and, just depending on how well the rest of the teams, like Houston and Illinois would play. I guess, shout out. Obviously, Florida kind of looking, struggling against Iowa here to start. I guess, we haven't necessarily seen Nebraska as like a heavily picked Final Four team, but Houston minus 2.5 versus Illinois to start. If Houston just crushes through the rest of the Final Four, then maybe Houston could be favored against Duke. I don't see UConn being Duke. Yeah, they did have the closer game against Furman, and they're minus 4.5 against UCLA. But I guess Michigan, they have to get through Michigan State as well. Either way, like we're saying, I don't see Michigan State being favored against Duke also. But 6.5, point being 6.5 seems like it's a pretty reasonable line to start. And St. John's, of course, did give up a little bit of a run to Kansas at the end of the game. So do we say that the close score, and then, that is the that is the magic of the tournament as well too. Obviously, you know, you do have these weird moments, these weird things can happen, and it's like, what, you know, St. John's can be the better team in the game. Like even if Kansas won the game, like, I mean, and again, St. John's was a team going into the bracket that people were looking at the way that was playing out and kind of thinking that maybe they could make a run at the Final Four. Again, obviously having to get past Duke, but there is some matchup stuff there that people were liking. And, you know, again, we're kind of a trendy team if you weren't wanting to pick all of the 1 seeds across the table. I feel like and again, I guess more people were picking Duke to go to the Final Four. So I guess with the way the path there, you know, UConn might have had a better chance to advance. But I feel like just in general, there may be more of a consensus around St. John's roster than UConn's roster, if that makes sense. I think Hurley obviously is able to, you know, get a little bit more success out of a team. I mean, he's had super talent. He's had, you know, the most talented teams in college basketball, you know, over the past couple years, especially. And, you know, obviously looking back with the way the guys play in the NBA is going to kind of, you know, at least inform a little bit of how good the team was in a sense. You know, bringing up that Villanova team's obviously the #1 team to do that with, because, I mean, Brunson, for example, you know, was 1, 2, 3. All right, there we go. Obviously that, you know, that pedigree wasn't directly translated to the NBA right away, but regardless, you know, obviously with, you look back having like Castle and Klingon on the team at the same time. And I mean, Castle might be like an all NBA level player, and Klingon himself is going to be, you know, potentially a guy that you could re-sign to multiple, you know, he's a guy that could definitely get raises every salary that he, you know, every contract that he signs. I don't necessarily, again, know at this point if he's going to be, you know, like a third, a fourth. If they're expanding to 32 teams, if they're expanding the league, does that mean they have to add another All-NBA team? I think 3 All-NBA teams is still pretty good for 32 teams, but 4-team All-NBA, is Klingon going to be the 4-team All-NBA? I guess we'd have to, see how that would play out there. But again, obviously, you know, it's like, okay, Hurley, it makes sense why Steph Castle and Donovan Klingon were able to win the title, even if in the moment it was still a little bit like, okay, I don't know if, you know, again, we were viewing that team like they had Anthony Davis and, you know, Jamal Murray at the same time. I guess, you know, was Jamal Murray was the 7th pick overall in the draft, but still, maybe Jamal Murray was a little bit more, was he a higher recruit than Steph Castle? Steph Castle was a 5-star though, so he just didn't have a 3-point. He just doesn't have a 3-point. I guess we just had to unplug the microphone and restart. It is what it is. We were like, okay, we're having trouble with the microphone, and then we just stepped on the cable and just straight up unplugged it. So, I mean, hot start. It is what it is. Hey, yo. We might have to find a way to, like, tie this baby up somehow. You know, we're always making improvements, chat. We're always making improvements. We've promised to be better with unplugging, with getting the problem is, I guess it's not the best mic cable, so it's a little picky. You know, sometimes you know, hey, as I say, you jiggle it the wrong way, it stops working. Hey, yo, whoa, pause. But I guess in the world of mic cables, that is also true. So, you know, it does apply. But also, you know, if we're stepping on it, it doesn't help as well. But either way, what are we talking about, Chad? Hey, yo, what were we talking about? Duke and St. John's, something along those lines? I'm not sure. I think we were talking about John's there for a second. Hey, yo. But what are we talking about? St. John's, the basketball team, Rick Pitino, their run, I guess. Either way. But, yeah. Hey, yo, shout out, like we're saying, the first time since 99 that they have been to the Sweet 16. So, we know our guy, you know, Shamori Pons in the past. We were hoping that maybe some of those teams would be able to make the tournament run. But this is definitely the one. Our guy, Ejiofor, though, is definitely a fun player to root for as well. So there's yeah, wait a second. I guess St. John's not an NBA team yet. We better search him up in the college basketball directory here. Let's see what we've got. So the last time, oh wait, this is their current team here. And again, I feel like they have been good as well too in terms of the, what are we saying? Just like their overall ranking. So I think there have been more years since 1909 that they've been a top 16 team in the nation. But Big East regular season champs and tournament champs, number 10 overall. So this type of run definitely seems like it makes sense for them to go this far. But yeah, I guess lost in the second round last year, and that was as a 2 seed as well, 31-5. So yeah, I was gonna say I definitely remember them having some better teams. Yeah, last year they were a pretty dominant team. 20-13 was Pitino's first season there, and Chris Mullen, I guess. Ayo, shout out. He was trying. He was trying. Was he the coach when Pons was there, or was it Mike Anderson? I think it was Mullen. Ayo. But 8-24, 14-19, 16-17, 21-13. You know, the team was getting better. I guess it just wasn't enough, you know, and not quite making it there. Yeah, you're starting from 8-24. Like, give the man a break. But I guess Steve Lavin had him at 20 wins, you know, the last couple of years. So there's that. But second round loss as the 9 seed in 14-15. So you're playing the 1 seed there. That's not necessarily, you know, a shameful loss. San Diego State was the 1 seed. What do we've got for this team? I guess not necessarily stacked with NBA talent, but shout out Sir Dominic. That's the first name. Hey, yo, Sir Dominic Pointer. Shout out, 21 points in this game. D'Angelo Harrison, Phil Green, Jamal Branch, Rasheed Jordan was the starting lineup for... oh, no, that was St. John's. Ayo, okay, so Sir Dominic Pointer, St. John's. I guess not quite able to take him to the Sweet 16, but you got to give him his respect anyways. Sir Dominic Pointer and Shamori Pons on the All-Century team for St. John's. Okay, I guess still not necessarily seeing NBA familiar names on the San Diego State roster as well. J.J. O'Brien led in scoring for that game. Winston Shepard. Hey, yo. Skylar Spencer. Dwayne Pohl II. And Akil Quinn for 2 points, 1 for 6. Malik Pope off the bench in that game with 6 points. I guess how far did San Diego State make it in the tournament? 14-15. Hey, yo, they lost in the next round to do... Oh, I guess it was the 8-9 matchup. I guess second round. This is where we're getting tricked up again because they have that first round labeled as the first 4. So they lost the 8-9 matchup to San Diego State. And San Diego State got crushed by Duke in the next round. I guess that makes more sense than being a 27-8 1 seed. I guess a 27-8 1 seed, maybe if it was like a slower year in college basketball. I don't know. But sporadic tournament appearances just in general. So, yeah, lost in the regional final. There we go. In 1998. I guess the 98-99 season. Not necessarily, I think we're saying 99, but not the 99-2000 season. Oh, chat. Hey, yo, the Johnny's logo from back in the day. Pretty cool. A little bit of Iowa State Cyclones vibes here with really leaning into the Storm sort of thing. But, I mean, you know, Red Storm, you see the separation is pretty cool. I mean, you hate to see that they lost to Ohio State as well, too. Oh, the Meta World Peace St. John's team. I mean, we're not calling them out, just reading the box score. You know, 9 points for our guy, Meta World Peace, in this game. LeVar Postel with 24 was the lead scorer. 9 points, 4 turnovers, 5 fouls and 4 turnovers for our guy, Meta World Peace. I mean, he was destined for greatness in the NBA. 9 rebounds, though, 2 assists, 2 steals. But, wait, what was his stat line for the year that... Oh, his career in college, he was 13 a game. Okay, so he was getting points. 14 a game, 46% from the field, 37% from 3 that final season. So, yeah, very productive forward. Shout out. Stats all across the board, like I was saying, rebounds. 14, 6, and 4 is pretty... It's 2 steals and then a block on top of that. So, yeah, that's obviously kind of the type of player a little bit that he wasn't. I mean, 14 in the NBA is a little different than 14 in college. But, I mean, yeah, he's second leading scorer there on the team overall for the season. Bootsy Thornton is the leading scorer on the team. It's always like that, Chet. Hey, the leading scorer is like the guy that never makes the league, but he was still, I guess, putting up shots back in the day, 50% from the field. So, worth taking. Shout out. 48% his senior year there as the lead guy, 19 and then 17 for his 2 years. So, hey, obviously this St. John's team was good. 2-time All Big East for Bootsy Thornton. Didn't even get drafted. Hey, what's going on there? The league didn't even give him a run. I guess 32. That's why we need 32 teams. Give guys like Bootsy. I keep wanting to say Bootsy Collins. Hey, Bootsy Thornton. Hey, give him a chance. But yeah, this would have been so Meta World Peace. I guess shout out. They haven't necessarily been like showing Meta World Peace St. John's highlights. And I know, obviously, again, we're fans of we just because we're fans of some Shamori Ponds doesn't necessarily mean that we're automatically gonna be inclined to go back and learn everything about St. John's history. But since then, it is you have a connection with the player like Shamori Ponds or something. You keep an eye on the team after that. You keep an eye on the team. You hope that their success, of course, doesn't clash with your own teams, but if they can have success in their own right, and if it can help out Michigan, if they can eliminate Duke from the tournament, if they can eliminate Michigan State from the tournament, then we'll take it. We'll take it. I mean, again, we're not going to necessarily want to face St. John's. They're going to be a good team in their own right, but it's also much easier emotionally losing to St. John's than it is to Duke and Michigan State. That's also true as well. St. John's is not a hated team. I feel like they might be honestly the most liked team in the bracket. The only thing, I would say the only thing. Shout out the WNBA standings. Maybe we'll go look at that in a second. But the only thing that I feel like, if we're just surveying the nation as to reasons as maybe why people would be like, I'm not like necessarily rooting for St. John's. Like, is everybody, where's the Rick Pitino stock at this point in 2026? But I feel like people are like, Rick Pitino, he's coaching basketball. I feel like we have to go back and double check everything that happened at Louisville. Obviously, again, the but I mean, I think some of that was going on at Louisville. The difficult part when you just get the word scandal thrown around, especially in sports sometimes, is in college sports as well too, because of the rules with the way that the money operates in the sport. You can have scandals that are just sports scandals, and then obviously you can have scandals the other way as well too that get into real issues. And obviously we're not going to make light of everything that happened at at Louisville, but there was definitely some regulation, like again, like money regulation stuff that was going on there. And then I think the thing that everybody remembers that was going on at Louisville was, he was maybe, bringing in some business professionals to meet with the team, meet with some recruits. So, again, obviously, not necessarily the classiest move maybe by our guy Rick Pitino. I guess it depends on how you want to phrase it, but still, not a thing that you should be doing probably as a Division I basketball coach or any level of basketball coach. I guess, what are you doing in the pros? But obviously, college basketball, it's probably not something that you should be introducing to the team. But again, is it one of those things that is ultimately going to be like is it a transgression that we can't look past as the college basketball community? Again, I feel like it's it's something to acknowledge, something to be like, hey, again, we can't be doing that. Obviously, there was punishments that took place for that team. Michigan obviously never lost that national title game. That just never happened now. So, obviously, shout out Rick Pitino for that. But again, I feel like St. John's St. John's has got to be up there with the most, at least for the college basketball fans, the most liked teams as well. And maybe Rick Pitino's a part of that. I don't know. I feel like even before, just because if you're not necessarily the overwhelming successful basketball coach, then maybe there is going to be just that, there is going to be not necessarily like a a biased 100% toward, everybody rooting for you. But regardless, I feel like he was a little bit of a controversial just basketball figure again before that. But yeah, point being, St. John's are like Kansas. People I feel like are cool with Kansas. Like Bill Self's cool at this point. Like again, he's not like a Coach K, Emperor Palpatine runs the, Nick Saban runs the league type of situation, but he is obviously, great and well respected. But the Kansas legacy of it all, like Kansas has had so much success as a basketball program, you're not necessarily like, hey, let's all rally together and root for Kansas, because again, it's just so many national titles at this point. It would have to be, like the way that we view, the Michigan titles from the turn of the century in the 1900s, where it's like, Michigan won all these titles in 1900, 1903, 1904, 1906, 1907. And it's like, we don't necessarily count these titles. I mean, in 1924, those titles would have been 20 years old. Those titles still would have been pretty legit. But now apparently like 150 years, 120, I can't do math, 120 years some later, like, apparently those titles don't count. So if the Kansas basketball success like gets to that level, then again, maybe they become a beloved team. Like that, not to say that Michigan, football's a beloved team, because they've only won 2 titles since, 1932 or whatever. I still, obviously, again, they're a controversial team as well too with this last title, but regardless, just the success part of it. Of course, you can cross over the other way, where it's like, hey, give somebody else a chance for a second. But yeah, Self won the finals with Braun in 21-22, and that is, hey, to steal another bit from Russillo here. That is an important title. Shout out our guy Russillo. He does our guy. It is what it is. Call in. Shout out them. We say our guy Russillo, but he does say he does talk about, of course, the importance of a guy securing. And I mean, it is important for anybody to secure a ring. I don't think it's like a thing where it's just like, oh well, he got that one. Like throw that around lightly. Like at the end of the day, you win a title. You win a title. I think there's really no championship you look back at outside of Louisville, like we just said with Rick Pitino. That one doesn't count, but there's really no championship that you look at and just go like, especially on a professional level, like that one doesn't count. I guess if the Patriots, had won the title this year, maybe that would have been the first one. But again, that Bill Self, that Christian Braun title for Bill Self is crazy, because he doesn't have the consistent, it is what it is. He doesn't necessarily have as many like consistent, deep runs into the bracket as maybe, and I know Coach K, there are some years where the Coach K teams were maybe losing a little earlier than some. Like if we went back and looked like, average tournament run, average tournament length. Hey, would Roy Williams have like, a longer tournament length than than Coach K? Hey, but wait, keep an eye out for the Rem and Sam tournament length piece. Pause that we're gonna be dropping. Hey, we're gonna start writing now. It is what it is. That'll be our intro to written journal. The written word will be, who has the biggest tournament in the history of college basketball. But either way, Roy Williams might have Bill Self might have like a surprisingly small tournament. Who knows? Because there is some early losses there for our guy. But yeah, of course, again, he has won one at least this decade, so recent enough. And Bill Self, again, the teams are good enough, obviously, as well, too. Like, you see at some point in the season, I mean, literally every team he's had has been ranked as a top 10 team. So it's like at some point there has been like this year, again, maybe the team itself wasn't a top 10 team, but there was a player on the team, a moment with it that, you're like, okay, there is a certain level of talent that has to be acknowledged in the ranking, and a certain amount of success that they're having as well too. And again, going into the season, you hype up with a lot of their teams, so it's like preseason, like the AP pre might be the high at some point as well, like 18-19, the high there. I guess they were 12-6 that year, shortened season, but Either way, I guess, yeah, we get the final here, 19, 17, a couple of times, rounded out a little bit lower than some of the other years. But especially since then, it has been a little bit of a struggle. Second round, lost in the second round, and then the first round last year has been definitely, a little bit shorter. So, yeah, lost to 8 seed Arkansas. The year after winning the title, that does seem like a kind of a common thing. Again, bring it back to Villanova. That was a common, or not a common Villanova thing, but that was a thing that happened with Villanova. Is they did win the title, and that next year, that Josh Hart team. I think because we might have picked that team to go to the Final Four, win the title that year, and they got our bracket. So, or that was the year after they got Michigan. So it was like, okay, well, now this is the year that you're gonna poop the bed versus a Big Ten team. Where's your guy getting 30 off the bench in the second round just randomly? I guess again, DiVincenzo obviously not randomly, but regardless, again, that type of hangover in the bracket does seem like a thing that is maybe a thing to track. But regardless, it is still an early exit. And that Arkansas team as well, too, you look back at it, I mean, pretty talented. It was definitely one of those, like, highly recruited teams that didn't quite get all the pieces to gel together the right way. But, I mean, Nick Smith Jr., Anthony Black, and Ricky Council were three pretty good. I mean, all three of those guys got drafted, for sure. I guess I'm not sure about Devontae Davis or Kamani Johnson specifically. But, I mean, those three guys, again, super, super talented. Obviously, Council, I guess Davis, leading in scoring. The one guy that we're not even certain about led in scoring in the game. So, again, Jordan Walsh off the bench is an NBA, level player, as well too. But regardless, again, and I guess 1 point game. It's a close game. So, how much you going to criticize? But still, on paper, looking back, it is an early exit from the tournament. And then 22-23, lost to Gonzaga pretty decisively by 21 in that game. Kansas, you had Furphy, Hunter Dickinson, Nicholas Timberlake, KJ Adams, DeJuan Harris. After that, and Peterson was a big recruit for him in this way as well, too. Because, I mean, looking at this team, it is a little bit of a reminder. I mean, no disrespect. I mean, you get Dickinson in the transfer portal. I think he might have been legitimately the number 1 ranked transfer portal player when he was there. I mean, Furphy got drafted in the first round, right? First round Furphy? Is that what we're calling him? Oh, no, he was second round Furphy. Hey, yo, second round Johnny? Pause. I'm not sure, but what do we got? Oh, that's right. Drafted by the Spurs, but traded to the Pacers. Make no mistake, it is what it is. But I guess on paper, like we're saying, drafted the Spurs. But 35th overall pick that year. All Big 12 freshman team appearance. But, still, again, a little bit. What was their seeding? I'm assuming they were still pretty good in the regular season, obviously 23-11. And, a 4 seed, that range, still, again, puts them in the top 20, top 25 teams for the bracket. But is not necessarily okay, this is a tier 1 team that is immediately jumping off the page as a title contender when we're, making the picks. And I guess, close, outside of, I guess, Gonzaga, but close losses to Arkansas a couple of times. So are we looking at this game again? The other one was a 1 point loss, right? Yeah, we're not, it's not deja vu. Maybe it is for Kansas fans. But, and KJ Adams is really talented as well, too. Like, I guess I don't want to necessarily, speak down on this team too much. But even the team, even the team that they had today was definitely, carried a little, not carried a little bit. And, Peterson has his moments of fading in and out of the offense as well, too. There is some definite, stuff to look at with that, with the NBA thing there, for sure. But, again, obviously you have to give them credit with the success that they had in this team, because they would have been nowhere near successful this year without his scoring. And I know that we were looking at the BYU, Texas is in the Sweet 16, and we were kind of looking at that segment of games there, thinking that when we were filling out the bracket, thinking that maybe Dembasta could power BYU to the 16 if he just had a couple of big games. But unfortunately, again, Texas got him in round 1. But BYU is a 6 seed, Kansas is a 4 seed. Again, it's not too far off in terms of the overall team, but at least in terms of pedigree of the school. Again, Bill Self, Kansas, like we're saying a little bit there, but still, very similar situations for kind of being a one-person offense in a way. And again, maybe there was some coaching there with Bill Self, where I don't know if he's the perfect guy to be drawing up, genius offenses around a guy like Darren Peterson and, making it super successful in that way, because I don't know if Darren Peterson is necessarily, like a Luka Doncic Harden type as well, too. I guess, 1.7 assists per game in 22 games per minute. Definitely not a James Harden type. Hey, shout out. James Harden does pass. Again, it is a little bit of a, say what you want about the dynamic of his game. There are assists that do appear on the stat sheet somehow. So he is passing, at certain points. But, again, Doncic will do, Trae Young, all these guys that, again, say what you want about the amount that they dominate the offense. Obviously, the success, I guess Trae Young has been to as many conference finals rounds as Luka Doncic. Obviously, Luka Doncic went on to make the finals that year, but they've both been to the conference finals at least one time. James Harden, has Harden been multiple times? Now we have to fact check this real quick. It is what it is. Has Trae Young been to as many conference? I guess because James Harden went with OKC. I guess we never necessarily credit that toward him with all respect. And you got to, kind of, for sure. Even just because he's off the bench, doesn't mean obviously that he wasn't part of that big three back in the day. But still, it's kind of a, because of Durant, Westbrook having the run without him, it is still kind of a Durant and Westbrook, team, that just whole era. But what are we saying? Conference championship runs here for James. James, Mr. Harden. I'm assuming that there is at least 2 with Houston. I guess 3. I don't think they made it 3 times. But did they make it? Did he make it twice with Houston on his own? Game highs, playoff series. Let's see here. Western Conference Finals, Houston versus Golden State, 14-15. And then Western Conference Finals, 17-18. And then did they make Western Conference Finals? Eastern Conference Finals for sure. But yeah, 2 Western Conference Finals for James Harden on his own. And yeah, one, almost was able to get Golden State that one year as well too. But regardless, and when I was watching Peterson in this game, he had a moment where he blocked a 3-pointer. And that was honestly one of the best things that, I guess, do we say one of the best things that we've seen him do all season? But, for a guy to get that label as that score first guy, it's not, again, you hate to, I guess, stereotype a player just because of the way that other guys play, obviously, but sometimes those guys don't necessarily take the other aspects of the game as seriously. And if you were making the James Harden, Luka Doncic comparison there, again, the Rem and Sam pod calls out the NBA superstars. It is what it is. In our windhorse mode over here, Doncic, there's the winner's tunnel. Like, again, there have been moments where, Doncic maybe hasn't taken the other elements of the game. His craft hasn't been there the same way it has been with his scoring. But Peterson did have that defensive moment where it was almost a little like, and I'm trying to think, again, obviously we haven't been watching our, like I said, shout out our guy Rosillo, but we haven't been listening, watching as much of our guy Bill Simmons as much since he's been to Netflix. We're taking a stance. It is what it is, but I'm not sure exactly who he has been comparison like to Peterson has been. I know he's been, a champion of Peterson as the number 1 pick in the draft for a lot. That even before he went to Netflix, he was saying Peterson was the number 1 overall pick. And I did just see a short, I guess, of him comparing. It was a cuff to Kyrie. So, you're obviously going to get the big names for the comparisons. It is what it is. I'm not going to be the one to sit here and be like, he's not going to be Kyrie. Is Darius, is he going to be as good as Kyrie? Blah, 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 blah. Kyrie hits the shots in the finals. It's like, okay, I get the stylistic comparisons, but, still, at the end of the day, you hear names like that. It's like, whoa. But like we're saying, I'm about to throw out, pause big names for Peterson as well. NBA DraftNet. Here we go. Here's our guy. Let's see what we've got for names. Devin Booker for Peterson. That is a little bit more of a patient, off the ball score versus, and maybe that's like a, what do you say, not a positive comp, because the comps that I was thinking about watching the game are positive as well too. But again, just a different style of off-ball score that is not, again, as reliant as, dominating possessions to get his shot. But Booker can do that as well too. So again, as we see here with Peterson in Kansas, that he definitely can. But it was a little bit of the like the Mitchell Wade vibe of guard. I guess now that I say that as well too, have people online been maybe saying, again, rest in peace, I don't know. I think maybe Kobe goes into the no comparison zone at this point. It is what it is, obviously, because the closest comparison for Kobe is MJ. So it'd be, once we start getting into that territory, it is what it is. Even Anthony Edwards had to earn those comparisons. Like, I feel like people definitely weren't comparing Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan when he was being drafted. Obviously, not him going to Georgia underrated him. Maybe it did a little bit. It is obviously weird to think of Anthony Edwards going to Georgia still. I guess maybe not, but still, just in terms of it being a basketball program, I guess by far probably the best player they've ever had. I guess we don't want to underrate anybody. Where did Dominique go to college? Hey, yo. But I guess he played professional ball at Atlanta, so obviously I don't know why he would have to play college in Atlanta as well too. But regardless, even Kobe to Kobe and Wade to Mitchell, or what are we saying? Kobe and Jordan to Wade and Mitchell. Like, there is elements of athleticism and attacking the basket and high-flying nature to their games that, and even two-way play as well, too, that overlap with all of those guys. But the way that, of course, Jordan and Kobe were able to take their games into the post later in their career were, of course, another reason why both those guys were able to be great players. But they were able to do that a little bit more, Jordan and Kobe are a little bigger than Wade and Mitchell. But I don't know if Peterson would necessarily develop the post game in the same way that, Jordan and Kobe would. But again, attacking the basket, scoring in isolation and the mid-range stuff, maybe again, Mitchell is sort of the toned down playoff success version of Wade. Again, is Peterson going to draw 40 fouls in a playoff game against the Mavs and then win the finals? I guess, there's only one way. He's not going to do it in Sacramento. Well, I guess he can't do it in Sacramento because, I guess in realignment, that'd be tough. I think Dallas is probably going to stay in the West in realignment. It feels like a Western Conference team. People were saying they kicked Minnesota over to the East. I think Minnesota feels like a Western Conference team. Keep him in the West, please. Hey, yo, keep Glenn Taylor in the West. It is what it is. But Memphis is definitely an Eastern Conference team. Get him into the East. It is what it is. But yeah, what are we saying? Yeah, Peterson, the overall nature of his game that flashed in this one was, and maybe this was, again, us watching, this is probably the most of a game we've ever seen him play. It is what it is as well, too, even including the round one game. But regardless, that was still encouraging to see him show out in that two-way way as well, too, when they definitely needed him. And again, I'm saying I don't know if he can carry an offense like this I guess he probably can. Hopefully in the NBA, he will be able to get enough points where, again, that would become somewhat of a viable thing. But I just don't know as of right now, again, if he has the playmaking element where he would make that team a super high-level playoff successful team. And again, Mitchell, you wouldn't necessarily say like Mitchell is, like a 1%er passer in the NBA. But there is definitely, a playmaking element to his game. How many assists did Mitchell have per game? He might have been 1.7 in college. I guess we can't necessarily, assume that the Louisville guys around him were, I guess I don't remember that team as well, too, like compared to this Kansas team. So, he might have just had guys missing shots as well, too. Like we're saying, Peterson, but it is some of the stylistic stuff as well, too. It's not just like every pass that he's throwing over to the Kansas guy is a brick. But again, the offensive stuff is obviously super elite as well, too. And like I'm saying, DeBasta definitely had a similar situation this year and could definitely find himself in a similar spot in the NBA where you're just like, okay, you're feeding Dembasta buckets and he's definitely being successful, but is there a team thing that is being involved? But I think that I think the thing with Dembasta and Boozer that's a little easier to see is them playing next to other superstars and maximizing their game. But, again, Peterson's such a great scorer that I'm sure he'll be able to figure it out at some point. But Mitchell was 1.7 assists as a freshman, so he did have that second year. If Peterson goes back to college, he's going to be 2-3 assists next year. So, 3 assists is not like that bad in college for being a scorer. It is what it is. Again, 15, it's not like Mitchell was 20 a game the way Peterson was. So Peterson is already a better, more efficient scorer than Donovan Mitchell. But, regardless, again, because of where he gets drafted, the immediate responsibilities and some of that stuff does, of course, play a factor into it. But this was definitely an encouraging game for sure. When, and it's not like we were going to hot take not have him amongst those top 3 guys, I don't think. Though, Ahmet does look pretty good tonight. I don't know. We have to go back and check the Caleb Wilson tape. But regardless, again, for comparing him and Dembasta and Boozer, definitely much more of a, okay, I think I really, and again, maybe it's us just with him being so overwhelming, the number 1 favorite, I was trying to look in another direction and be a little bit of a, I don't guess, counter, just kind of a look in a different direction that way. But regardless, obviously, hot take, we're going to have to consider it. He did play super well. And like we're saying, the bar for him against some of these performances was definitely pretty high. Like Dembasta, was able to have a good performance in that game. And he was good against Cal Baptist as well, too. There was talk about, he didn't score a lot at the end of the game, and Cal Baptist was able to make a run. And again, that is a real thing. And we have to go back and check as well, too. Again, like the function of him on the team was a little bit of a, my turn, these 4 guys are going to take their turn now sort of element. So, on the other hand, who's to say that this Kansas team with a different, with let's say Dembasta or maybe Boozer, like if you take Boozer and switch him out for Peterson, is Kansas Duke? But obviously not. Like Duke's just better around Boozer there as well too. But again, maybe for Self, this is a little bit of a basketball coach team that could have used a little bit of smoothing out with some of that stuff. But again, it was important for him to get the recruit and get the big name, and it did help power this team as well too. But again, he has not necessarily, outside of the title, been the most threatening team in the past. So I'm not saying that, we're not over here saying that Bill Self needs to, something drastic needs to happen. But yeah, I mean, 18-19, lost in the second round, and then obviously we didn't have the tournament in 19-20. And that is tough as well too, I guess, because that team would have, been a 1 seed probably. And I guess they're kind of the de facto national champion of the season because the season ended with them as the 1 seed. So I guess Bill Self has 2 national titles in the past however many years. But regardless, that is tough. That is tough just for the mental of, again, seeing his team make that run. But who knows? They lose in the second round and it becomes more disappointing. It, obviously the chances of that he's saved as well too. But then the next year they lose, I guess in the second round. So, again, the last 6-7 tournaments hasn't necessarily put the best record altogether on the table. Lost in the national semifinal in 17-18, regional final. Again, you start going back a decade ago, like obviously this has been a competitive team, much more consistently winning 30 games as well too. You see basically every year 33, 35, 32, 31, 25, 27, but 33, 31, 31. And then since then, yeah, the one national title team was the 30-win team, 34-6. And obviously I guess that's them winning tournament games as well too, helping add to that record. But regardless, what is it? Bill Self, he's losing it, chat. Hey, yo. I don't know if that's the take, but just something to keep an eye on. And I guess we could see what their recruiting class is as a 24/6 Sports. What's the website that takes a little bit of time off? Here we go. 24/7 Sports. We'll see if they're you know, getting the 5-star to replace Peterson. Because again, Ayo, he's gone. It is what it is. Are they going to be able to put together the NIL package? Oh, so they do have number 1 again, chat. Tyron Stokes, a forward this time. Will that make a difference? I don't know. Of course, Duke gets number 3. Arkansas gets number 2. Jordan Smith, combo guard, goes to Arkansas. Caleb Holt, number 4, to Arizona. Missouri gets number 5. The combo guard. BYU, a Debasta replacement, number 6. Bruce Branch. Oh, chat. Anthony Thomas, Ohio State, what are you doing? Somebody tell him to stop. Somebody tell him it's not the right move. Hey, yo, Michigan, get in there. Pause. See what we can do. Oh, and they've got number 13. So Bill Self heard I guess he heard us doubting, chat. Did he do the recruiting just now? Hey, yo. Number 4 overall rank. I guess number 3 if you include the transfer portal. Somebody's transfer portal made them worse. Hey, yo, because they don't have anybody in the transfer portal. But he's got number 13, number 70, and number 94, and number 140. So he's got a whole lineup. Hey, yo, shout out. This might be his best recruiting class in a while, honestly. Or, you know, again, just the run there over the last couple of years wasn't necessarily the hottest streak. But let's see, like 2021 class, 11th overall rank. I guess, ayo, you know, shout out. Poor KJ Adams. Ayo, it is what it is. Call in and defend yourself. But regardless, you know, 85th overall recruit in the class, still pretty high level, obviously. But again, 11th overall, 6th overall. Oh, that's right. Great. We forgot about our guy, Grady Dick. Hey, yo. Pause. Ernest Edua Jr., number 32. MJ Rice, number 37. And, that's right, Ejiofor. I forgot they were talking about that being a revenge game. Number 47. So does that mean and we should have thought about it as well, too. Somebody from that class this year is definitely going to transfer. It is what it is. And that's right, they did have McCullough as well, too. So I guess he has still been... But even then, Grady Dick, still your highest guy, is 21. Not to, I guess, again, say that his classes aren't bringing... There isn't a depth of talent that he is bringing in. Like in Michigan, this is a very, Michigan-esque type of class, 6th overall recruit. Michigan, again, it's not like we're always going to be, getting the number 1 overall recruit in the nation. And again, Dusty May, shout out. The transfer portal is definitely going to be a lane where, he is crushing there, as we've already seen. But again, with Peterson and this Stokes kid, and you see him getting back into the top 5, top 10 names there as well too. Again, highest recruit in 23 is the 20th overall recruit. So again, that stuff matters. As much as, like we're saying, the transfer portal does matter, recruiting also, like, both things matter now. That's the thing in college basketball, that it's not, is the transfer portal ruining college basketball? Yes, it's changing the landscape. It's opening up a new lane for teams to become competitive, for player movement in a certain way, obviously pause. But, recruiting still does matter. Again, look at Duke. Duke is still obviously a heavily recruited team at this point with, Boozer and stuff. So, obviously, the talent's the talent. It is what it is. But regardless, Bill Self hasn't quite been able, like we're seeing here, to get the top 20. But then again, like we're saying, the coaching up of the guys as well, too. There is still obviously a baseline of great player that he is still bringing in. And I guess that year he had the number 1 transfer class. I guess that was the McCullough year. And Badinga. That's right. Badinga was big in this game for him as well, too, in the effort for them making the comeback. And our guy, Bryson Tiller. Shout out. We'll see. I'm assuming Bryson Tiller will be there. Shameik Moore? Oh, no, Shaquille Moore. I was going to say, no wonder they're a 4 seed. He's recruiting Hollywood. It is what it is. Honestly, if you're a 4 seed with Bryson Tiller and Shameik Moore, that's pretty good. It is what it is. Noah Shelby, that might be an actor name as well. AJ Storr, is that just Alex Sarr? That's his Uncle Drew character. But, yeah, obviously, Badinga. And Badinga is, I thought maybe for a second, that was just a new phrase that Kevin Harlan. I thought that was a new phrase that Kevin Harlan just introduced into the broadcast. I thought he was just getting excited. Badinga! But no, it just turned out it was the most perfect name. It's like the most perfect name announcer setup that's ever happened. I don't know if there's ever been a better name for, again, a specific announcer as well too. Like Kevin Harlan is the perfect Kevin Harlan. Hey, that's the even cooler version of Kevin Harlan's Kevin Harlan. Kevin Harlan is the perfect guy to shout out his name as well too. Badinga! Hey, yo, we need to get an AI Kevin Harlan, and we can just prompt it to yell out things. That'd be fun. I mean, with all due respect to the Harlan estate out there, we're not trying to, we're not trying to get into sketchy territory. We're just trying to pay homage because we love it when he gets excited about sports. It's one of the most fun things when you're watching a game is Kevin Harlan getting excited and we just Badinga. Hey, yo. Obviously not like that, but, however that sounds in the Kevin Harlan voice is obviously pretty fun. But 14th recruit is, again, the best recruit he's gotten, this decade up until Peterson, the number 1. And then, like we're even saying, hey, yo, Peterson was definitely carrying a little bit of a team. The recruiting class around Peterson, 72, 84, and again, we're talking about them still being a good team. It's not like he's recruiting he's not like he's recruiting a bad team. But regardless, we're talking about them going from being a competitive top 25 team, back to being a national championship, back to being like hey, remember Kansas is like that tier 1 team. Because again, the last couple of years, they've probably been probably still tier 1 because of the legacy. But regardless, it's a tier 1, not blue blood status, but tier 1 college basketball dominant status is, maybe it needs to be investigated. I'm not sure, but yeah, we got McKinney. I guess. Where did Stokes did he decommit since we've been talking? I'm not sure. Oh, I guess that was the forecast. The forecast was him going to Kansas. Hey, yo, so somebody could swoop in. It is what it is. So right now the highest. So that is a big. Obviously, the take here is the number 1 player recruit is a big commitment. But again, for self, that'd be crazy. Wait a second, Marcus Spears Jr. Oh, is that Marcus Spears kid? But that's Marcus Spears. That's Marcus Spears, the football player. Hey, yo. I mean, obviously Marcus Spears was an incredible football player. So if he's gonna have a kid, it would make sense that he was an incredible athlete. But the number 1 player in the nation is that, or is this different Marcus Spears? We'll have to see. Do a little research. Marcus Spears Jr. I mean, I guess Marcus Spears does work for ESPN. Does Marcus Spears, the football player, is he in charge of the basketball rankings? Hey, yo. Do we need to, who is in charge of ESPN's recruiting? But I guess this is also 24/7 sports. Okay, so multiple outlets do say that he is a good basketball player. Hey, yo. Shout out. Chat, we're buying the stock. It is what it is. We hate to jinx him like that, but I guess we're Michigan. Can we get the NIL package? What do we got? Texas. Oh, so Texas is going to be our, I guess, did Spears go to Texas or LSU? I thought maybe he went to LSU, but is that going to be the athlete kid school there? Arch Manning? Can Arch Manning stay one more season? Hey, yo, have Marcus Spears Jr. and Arch Manning at the same time in the program would be fun, but I guess we haven't quite got guys from 27 signing letters of intent now. I guess with the NIL deals, you gotta see what the offers are gonna be like from some of these guys. High Point? Oh, Chad, look at that. High Point getting in the top 5 for the number 2 recruit in the nation. What a move. Hopefully, I guess maybe the tournament game, we'll see if a second round bid was able to impress. What's this school here? Cal State Northridge. Shout out. Are these schools getting NIL offers, or is this just like, one of the early teams to send them a letter? I'm not sure, but Cal Northridge is not, I don't think, a school that we've ever heard of before. It is what it is. But yeah, shout out to the class of 2037. King Gibson, hey yo, from Spire Academy. I guess all these are gonna be basketball schools, but we love a school that's not even, doesn't even have like a school. I guess academy, but Spire, like that's not even a school. It is what it is. That's just a basketball. That's just a gym. That's literally just a gym. It is what it is. Oh, here we go. We've got another. Oh, Cal State Baker. The Cal State schools. I mean, as you would expect, but turns out there's maybe a little money in California, but the Cal State schools are getting in the mix. Charlotte, we do know that. And then what do we got here? Charleston. Hey, yo, shout out. So King Gibson is gonna help elevate one of these schools. No, he's gonna go to Florida State. It is what it is. Or Bama, I guess, is a guard. Probably end up going to Bama. But wait a second. 2026, I think, was the class that we were looking at to see if Self would have the bounce back. So pause. So yeah, he is. I guess as of right now, Tyron Stokes looks like the predictions are to Kansas. Oh, also Kentucky though, and also Oregon. I mean, you can't count out Oregon in the NIL era, obviously. I mean, is Dana Altman still there, right? So as long as he is, as long as he's still there, you're gonna have that mentorship, leadership ability to be able to sway players to be able to join your program. Obviously, the success there that they've had, but again, you got Phil Knight sending these guys paychecks as well too. Can be pretty convincing. Paychecks and custom Nikes. I mean, when is that never? I mean, that, turns out that would work for us, Chad. I mean, what else are we doing here if not hoping to get some shoes? It is what it is. Even if you get a paycheck, it's just with the hopes of being able to turn it into some shoes at some point. It is what it is. That's the goal. You may say, well, shouldn't you worry about it? It's like, well, either way, the goal is to get shoes and put aside all the other responsibilities, or, be able to check off all the responsibilities so you can get the shoes. See, either way, it's goals. It's either way. It doesn't matter. Pause. It's, whatever. I think your mind can wander there, but regardless, Stokes, it looks like he's going to maybe Kansas or Kentucky, but it looks like potentially Kansas. I guess I'm not sure. Last visit, April 18th. So that was his first visit, I guess, was to Kansas. Then Kentucky, then what do we got? USC, Oregon, Louisville. Who knows? Louisville maybe as well too. Could be a sleeper. Of course, Mikel Brown, top prospect in the draft, is there right now. So they do, again, still have that recruiting potential. But yeah, definitely, again, like we're saying, not necessarily the same sort of year-to-year dominance the last handful of years for Self. At Kansas, we're calling him out. It is what it is. The 21-20 title was not enough, I guess. It was not enough. You need to be winning the title every year, apparently, in the mind of the Rem and Sam pod. But I think it is fair a couple of second round exits to be able to. And again, this is how college sports is. As much as maybe some of these schools are a little bit more like, with respect to Kansas, even still, in as much as you could debate about how stylistically their approach to of course, could affect their success, but still, they are a little bit of a 4-year school where they do have guys that they do rely on talent to be there for a little bit. But regardless, in college sports, you're going to have to replenish your team, year to year. So again, clearly the last couple of years, it's not necessarily been the same ability to bring in the like we're saying, the talent to be able to advance in the tournament. Like, there is still talent there, still NBA talent. Yeah, Jalen Wilson, the year they won. So yeah, Jalen Wilson, Grady Dick, Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, DeJuan Harrison was the title team. And Jalen Wilson, AP All-American. Was he? I guess he wasn't Player of the Year, but 20-8 as well. I mean, shout out, of course, a difficult career because he was a one-time Michigan recruit, but you do. I guess he didn't even end up attending. So it is what it is. It ended up going to Kansas, won a national title there. But and I guess the 20 points a game was the next season, 21-22. They won the national title. So wait a second, McCullough was not on the national title team. It is what it is. They had Abaji, that's right, Abaji and Braun. We were saying that earlier, of course, Christian Braun and our guy Remy Martin. Hey yo, shout out the Remy Martin and McCormick balling out as well too. That was a good lineup. McCormick, a nice, just a good. You got to have that center to be able to make that run. It feels like. And St. John's, obviously with Ejiofor, does have a dominant big man in the middle there. And again, Braun flying around, Abaji hitting threes, 18 a game. Wilson, not being the 20-point a game scorer, but you could see still the way that he would attack the basket in hustle around would be fun. And Martin, just a solid pause point guard there as well too. I guess Abaji, yeah, was the All-American from this year. What was their run in the tournament? Texas Southern, Creighton, Providence, Miami, Villanova, and then an 8 seed North Carolina. So again, that's not to discredit a national title. We just said earlier that you don't discredit any national title, but it doesn't mean that you would rank it as the most difficult national title that anybody has ever won. That's for sure. The Villanova team that what round was this? This was the Final Four that they played. Colin Gillespie, Caleb Daniels, Braden Slater, Jermaine Samuels, Eric Dixon was the lineup. I mean, that's a 30-win team. So what am I going to say? And again, they're in the Final Four. And Colin Gillespie's like a top 70, top 80 NBA player. So, I mean, it makes sense that maybe he was in the Final Four. Again, that's looking back a little bit as well. And then was this the Caleb Love UNC team? So, I mean, shout out. We're pro Caleb Love on this pod. I mean, this championship run is a large reason why we're pro Caleb Love. That was a fun, basketball player to root for when he would go into heat check mode. So, again, fun stuff. Baycott, shout out. RJ Davis, another fun player there at UFC, what are we saying? North Carolina, as well. Leaky Black, kind of a, fun wing player. Interesting upside. And then, yeah, this would have been Banchero, Wendell Moore, Jeremy Roach, AJ Griffin, and Mark Williams, all on the same team. Caleb Love taking down an NBA team. Pause. Whoa, hey, yo. It is what it is in the Final Four. Shout out, close game, and again, he had a great tournament. But yeah, still, shout out, Kansas was able to make the win and through the Big 12 tournament as well too. So pretty dominant the entire year. But like and it is also, the what are we saying, the standard that he has set for himself. He has put himself in that tier 1 of college basketball coaches, and the landscape has changed a little bit. Obviously, there have been the guys like we mentioned earlier are not there anymore. Obviously, Jay Wright, Coach K, Roy Williams, and he is again of a legacy wise maybe in a class with those guys, but and like we're seeing now with the recruiting and stuff, this should kind of be his time, honestly, for college basketball, if you're really thinking about it. Again, and Pitino as well, too. They were talking about going into this game how many times that you have multiple the guys that have won multiple championships as the head coach. I guess they're still counting Pitino's Louisville title there. Did he win multiple at Kentucky, or did he just win one at Kentucky and one at Louisville? Are they still does he still have multiple even without the Louisville one? I guess we'll have to double check here. But again, that pedigree and the school that he's at, I mean, he should definitely be a legacy. He should definitely be legacy wise, dominance wise, and again, the way that we like we're saying, for him to be viewed in a legacy sort of godfather coach type of a way. That is, I guess, what are we looking for here? Pitino, national championships, Final Four with Providence. AO if that's what NCAFF stands for. But NCAA, oh, here we go, conference tournament champion. Oh, was NCAA tournament, does that mean they make the tournament or won the tournament? I guess too difficult here. It is what it is. Oh, 2 championships for Pitino. NCAA champion 1996 and 2013. What is this? Hey, yo, so yeah, I guess, like we're saying, technically only 1 championship for Rick Pitino and only 1 at Kentucky. But, yeah, I mean, and like we're saying, Shire at Duke. Duke is still that basketball program that has the infrastructure, and Shire still has the opportunity to be able to carry on that program. Again, do you say the same way that Coach K did? Obviously, he's not going to be established in that type of way, but he can still have that level of success. But that's what I'm saying about Bill Self, is he should be the most established guy in college basketball as a head coach. And I'm not saying it doesn't necessarily feel like that, but like we're saying, it feels like the title for that is up for grabs in a little bit of a way. Like, you don't necessarily look at the landscape. I guess because we're Michigan fans, we're just waiting for Dusty May to ascend there. But again, Dan Hurley has kind of taken that role from him. And do you just say that it's recency bias? Well, because Dan Hurley won titles more recently, the 2 titles more recently, I guess it's like, well, that is obviously a part of the conversation for the state of now. But also, like we're saying, the UConn teams have just made farther runs in the tournament as well too. Like last year, were they final? I guess they lost in the second round, but lost to the national champion by 2 points. So I guess what we're saying, Kansas lost close games. So I guess it depends. If UConn loses in the second round tonight, then now all of a sudden it's more even again for Hurley. He's back on watch. But that is, again, 2 second round exits. You start going, year to year like that, and they are the 2 seed this year compared to being the 8 seed, last year. So I guess again, you lose what you could say. Well, they've only lost 1 game in the tournament over the last couple of years. It's like, well, how many games you can only lose 1 game in the tournament every year. So yes, that is what it is. But the back-to-back national title runs again, obviously, that has been impressive. And yes, he has not been around as long as Dab Hurley. Hey yo. It's another who's the guy? Kevin Harlem and Dab Hurley are a couple of fun characters there. But oh, wait a second, this is his player page. But and like I'm saying, yeah, he the argument for current best and that sort of Godfather status is a little bit of a different sort of argument. But regardless, again, Bill Self can definitely be there for both. I guess Dan Hurley started coaching at Wagner in 2010, so just in general has been around for 15 years. It's not like he's a new Division I head coach, but again, he goes Wagner, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island in the A10. Maybe if he had coached like a smaller Power 5 school beforehand, again, they were in the tournament as well too, being a competitive team. So it's not like they weren't, it's not like, again, he wasn't not turning that program around. But just the ability for him to continue to elevate that status. And so he's been at UConn now for, 8-9 seasons. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 8th season at UConn. So he's still in that newer, coaching territory. I guess, if you get to officially a decade at like a Power 5 school, then you can kind of contend for Godfather status at this point. So, he's close. He's close. And again, he has the 2 national titles. Pitino can get there, like we're saying, as well, too, with him having 1. We'll give him a half. He has 1.5 national titles. But, and, obviously some bumps in the road for him, being that top guy in college basketball, having to go back to Iona for a couple years. And again, shout out, making Iona a tournament team, won the conference tournament there a couple times. And like we're saying, Big John, ayo, St. John, turn him into Big John a little bit. Ayo, pause. 31 and 29 wins. He's definitely established. But again, because of the fact that he has had to take this sort of roundabout path back to rebuilding a school like St. John, Kansas is still a little bit more of a highly viewed legacy program than St. John's is. It's still a tiny little bit of, again, a more elevated spot for Bill Self to be in. Hubert Davis at UConn. I guess Rick Barnes at Tennessee. Hey, yo. I guess this is a different year here. Well, he might have... Oh, that's Tennessee women. I guess he wouldn't have been the Tennessee women's coach in 2008, but he might have been... Oh, no, he would have been Texas coach in 2008, not Tennessee. But Rick Barnes, man, he loves the burnt orange. But again, Rick Barnes hasn't even won a national title. I guess hasn't even, shout out. Not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying in the legacy, in the resume comparisons of those 2 guys, he hasn't quite gotten to that level yet. We were mentioning Dana Altman earlier. Like Dana Altman, you could make a list of the 10 best current coaches in college basketball. Maybe Dana Altman's on that list, but regardless, it still hasn't won a national title yet. It is what it is. But you would still... you wouldn't necessarily put Dana Altman and Bill Self in the same tier, but again, over the last couple of years, I don't know if we were doing like a college basketball draft, again, I guess that'd be different than the NBA. You'd have to redraft your players and coaches every year, I guess, and you wouldn't be you wouldn't be building around Darren Peterson for the future, at Kansas in the same way that you would in the NBA. But regardless, you can make, I think, a case that, Dana Altman in a similar spot could have the same amount of success. Like, how much more successful would Oregon be with Bill Self compared to Dana Altman? I guess, again, you do have to give him credit for the constant 30-win season runs that he was having. And he has been, I guess, it does go back to 2010 for Dana Altman there. 21, 24, 28, 24, 26, 31, 33. So he was starting to get to that, level of, okay, this is a kind of a powerhouse team. But then 23, 25, 24, 21, 21, 24, 25. I mean, Oregon fans, DM us at Remington Pod and let us know. I mean, maybe you'd have to throw in, again, some custom Nikes, some jersey. You'd have to go like, we'll trade Bill Self for Dana Altman in 3 years of the best custom jerseys that you ever had. Or, so I don't know what the trade is. But is that a trade that you would do in theory? Would you trade Bill Self for Dana Altman? Maybe Oregon fans would say, I mean, definitely we would do that. It's Bill Self. He has 2 national titles. But again, is the team, I guess, again, the team, he does recruit a little. It's close, though. It's close. Again, I guess because in our college redraft scenario, the player franchise cornerstone argument is different, and you literally are building around coaches, then yeah, you probably, are taking Bill Self a couple spots higher. But like we're saying, that next wave of guys anyways I think you would probably at this point take Dusty May over Bill Self. You would take Dan Hurley over Bill Self. You would probably take John Shire over Bill Self as well too. Like, is John Shire proving himself a better on the court basketball coach? And also, Duke still has that recruiting power as well too. Oh, how are we forgetting about Calipari over at Arkansas? He needs a couple more seasons maybe to, see what that becomes like as an established school there. And, again, we're trying to think of all the guys that have currently won a national title. I know, like, Matt Painter, shout out, he's done a great job. Mark Few at Gonzaga. But again, those guys haven't gotten to that level, and that's a credit to Bill Self for Bill Self being in that historic tier of those title winning guys. But again, if we're just talking about, if we're putting the legacy aside and talking about like logistically building a team and how do we feel confidently building a team and what are the results of the team right now, year to year, I'm just saying it's not as like consistently in the top 5, maybe the same way it would have been back in the day for Bill Self. And again, I don't know if we are even arguing for him in the top 5 in the same way that we are. Like, is that, like, again, as a Michigan fan, it's not a conversation. Respectfully to the great legacy and the great recruiting that Bill Self has done and the great winning that he has done at Kansas, right now, it's not really a close. And this is, very much Michigan having one of the best seasons that literally we've, one of the most dominant regular seasons that a team has ever had in the Big Ten. Obviously, a Sweet 16 run is fun. We'll see if it's, able to turn into more here and ultimately what Dusty May's run at Michigan looks like. But, if I'm a prisoner of the moment, I'm not taking Dusty. We're not doing that trade. And like we mentioned the other guys as well, too. They're not trading their guy for that quote-unquote legacy that, even like we said, Shire not winning a title at this point. Shire, I guess, Shire hasn't really even done what Dusty May has done, because Dusty May, had that Florida Atlantic team in the Final Four, and we could go back and look at that path for sure. But that was still a team that's still an overachieving type of a season, quote unquote miracle run type of a season that, again, not say that Duke, Duke can't necessarily surprise a team by making the Final Four in the same way that Florida Atlantic can, but, for him to win a title or something, again, it's just that type of that type of achievement still a little bit higher for Dusty May in our minds, like we're saying. And I know, those are some 3 obvious examples. We're not necessarily, knowing the full landscape of the rising star talent for college. Like, who's the Iowa State head coach? TJ Otzenberger? Like, would Iowa State trade Otzenberger for Bill Self right now? I mean, and that's an interesting one because, Iowa State, they were able to keep Matt Campbell around for quite a while, and, Penn State's a pretty historic job. Like, you're not saying it's the best job in college football, but you could make a case that historically it could be one of the, it could be sneaky one of the 15. You know, it could be one of the 15 most historic jobs. Maybe historic is the best way to put it. Like, and maybe again, obviously, where they have like 2 coaches the entire time, but still, it's like, you know, still a pretty historic place to coach. You know, it makes sense why Matt Campbell would, you know, quote unquote, make that type of upgrade to go to that type of football program from Iowa State to Penn State. But from a basketball standpoint, maybe they're able to keep Oates and Berger around for a little bit. I know Fred Hoiberg was there for a while, but again, Iowa State's a school where, you know, the coach might be moving on. The coach might move on after a little bit. So it's like, well, maybe if we get Bill Self, does that mean he's just like resorted to being at Iowa State for like the next 15 years, or, you know, however many years he's going to coach or whatever? Like, you know, maybe they just take that instead. Pause. But in terms of the year to year of it, I feel like, you know, again, Iowa State was they're like a national title. Illinois, I guess literally all these teams just had better seasons than Kansas as well too. So we go through, would any team that had a better season this year trade your coach? But I mean, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. You know, go through college football. Would every, you know, who's the coach that was down a little bit? There is a name that I want to compare Bill Self to, but I guess I still don't know if it's right or yet not. It is what it is, but I guess like Calvin Sampson. Calvin Sampson's a good example as well, because Calvin Sampson is a little bit more in that, do we say legacy tier of those guys like maybe Coach K and Roy Williams, and, you know, again, the Bill Self tier of timeline guys. To say it respectfully, but, you know, maybe a little older than some of the other guys. But regardless, he hasn't gotten to a final. He hasn't won a national title yet either, if I'm not mistaken. But I think right now you would probably take Calvin Sampson over Bill Self, just because. And Bill Self has literally won a national title in the last 6 years, and Calvin Sampson is not. But he has been more. His teams have just been better. It is what it is. So maybe I'm stupid for thinking that, because I guess you have to. If you're taking the last 6 years, then yes, you have to. You know, grab the Kansas group because it includes a national title. It is what it is. But if you're saying going forward for the next 5 years, I think I would rather have Calvin Sampson than Bill Self. And again, I have to, you know, rethink about it because of the 2 national titles, but lost the national final to Florida last year, 23-24, lost in the Sweet 16 to Duke by 3 points in that game. I guess Sweet 16 to Miami by 6, lost in the Elite 8 to Villanova by a lot of 50-40 losses. Obviously a defensive team for Houston, but you see national semifinal 4 in 2021. This decade he's just been in way more tournament games than Bill Self has. I guess not quite. 1920 they didn't make the tournament. Of course, that year, like we're saying, Kansas, the one de facto championship year, Sweet 16 again in 18-19. So it's a close argument, but I don't think that Houston fans are trading if we're making that case. I guess Matt Painter, with all due respect, would they consider trading Matt Painter for... And again, Purdue just, you know, they just took the Big Ten tournament title away from Michigan. So he may be a little bummed out there. Izzo, no way that Michigan State is trading Izzo. Gonzaga versus Mark Few is interesting, but I don't think Gonzaga fans would do that. I think because that might go the other way, because there's been so many years where Mark Few hasn't won at this point, where it's like, well, maybe Bill Self does win somehow. But is it Underwear? What's the... Hey, okay, we're children, Chad. It is what it is. Is it Underwood at Illinois? You know, that's a close one as well too. Nate Oates at Alabama? I don't think so. I don't think they're making that trade. I guess now we're going for the teams ranked below Kansas at this point. But still, Alabama has been maybe a little bit... And just because of the fact that he turned the school around from a basketball program standpoint as well too. But I think that it's kind of appropriate, at least the handful of 10 or so coaches that might be... And again, going throughout the tournament, maybe some of the names that will have their value raised from the run here as well too. I guess it would be maybe, again, those 2 and 3 seed guys. I guess like Mick Cronin. Hey, yo. Do we just call him Coach Cronin? We might just have to call him Coach. What's his full name, Chad? Hey, yo. I didn't really like the way we said that, but our guy Coach Cronin. It is what it is. I guess we got to find the bracket here again. Pull that back up. Oh, chat, did we move back up in points? Hey, yo, we were in the 30%. Is 55% better or worse? Whoa, chat, we're in the top 13 million. Hey, yo. Oh, and there's 0 perfect brackets remaining. You hate to see it. RIP perfect brackets for 2026. Didn't make it out of the first weekend. But I'd say that's pretty good that we got all the way to the last time slot before the perfect brackets ended. I mean, that's a full round. That's almost 2 full rounds of games. Hey, yo. Some guy almost went 2 full rounds on the bracket, chat. That's pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy. You got to give him the credit there. But unfortunately, RIP the perfect brackets on ESPN for 2026. They no longer exist, but our disastrous first round. We might have to look at our bracket because this might be the best it ever is. Honestly, 12. We're selling our stock at 12.2 million. I think we might have to. No, I don't think the St. John win. Oh, that's because the points multiply. Obviously, again, we're not getting into any prize money territory here in the top 12 million. But at least we were like 500,000. There was like 600,000. Yeah, we're too competitive, chat, for this group. It is what it is. Yeah, 623,000 in this first take group. So at least we're in the top third now. Hey, yo, something a little bit respectable. But Michigan State, I guess, that's right. Our South Florida over Michigan State pick is hurting us a little bit. It is what it is there. And, we need UConn, I guess, to win for the sake of the points. Oh, Florida, I guess, making a little bit of a storm back on Iowa here. Trying to get the win. Oh, Iowa just hit a bucket. Hey, yo, they just took the lead on a 3. It is what it is. Oh, and we have Nebraska over Florida. I guess we said earlier nobody's picking Nebraska to make a run, but we are. It is what it is. And then Nebraska over Illinois. Sorry, we have Illinois making a run. I think that's what's gonna hurt us there as well too. Houston did look pretty good, but I mean, obviously so has Illinois. They've been cooking in their last 2 games, but the toughness that Houston has played with has definitely been there. And you wonder, obviously, if an offensive team like Illinois, would they run into that? It's going to be a reason why people are picking Houston. But that was our trying to, not be obvious, because again, everybody was picking Houston to kind of be the team out of that bracket. I think even more so than people were picking St. John's over like Duke as the upset. That was definitely like a trendy upset pick. I think Houston was just the pick out of this bracket, honestly. If we were just going percentage team to make the Final Four, I think Houston would have been probably the number 1 team out of the South. But Iowa State over Tennessee, pretty chalk there. Obviously, without Jefferson, we still, kind of question him a little bit game to game, but they've still managed to hold up without him pretty well. And, as they were saying on the broadcast today, maybe in like a positive way that, Peterson, like we're saying in Kansas, there's like 2 versions of the team when Peterson's running the team and then when he's not. Iowa State had a little bit of that with Jefferson, where it's like, hey, maybe there's a version of the team with when Jefferson's running the team, and then there's a different version of the movement shooting team that is without Jefferson. But that also, again, is maybe a little bit of a game-to-game heat-checky type team as well, too. So we will have to see there. But I guess Tennessee over Virginia is probably a pick that helped us out in terms of getting our score back up. Miami over Queens. Didn't quite get that one right. It is what it is. So Purdue, but we did, like we said, we were eyeing that Gonzaga 3 seed loss. I think maybe a lot of people were, but I guess unfortunately for us, it wasn't able to be Dembasta. Then Arkansas able to get the win over High Point. So High Point 88-94 against Arkansas. Maybe they do get that recruit. Hey, yo, who are we looking at? Was that, Jordan Smith ended up going to Arkansas. Hard commit, pause. Hey, yo, was that in 2026? That might have been 27. I think that might have been the 27 class where High Point's starting to make waves in 2027. That's crazy, chat. Shout out to High Point. Just getting in the mix. My mind is blown. I'm stunned that High Point is even considered. It is what it is. Maybe I shouldn't be. So, again, we kind of have a chalk, Elite 8, Final Four, Sweet 16 situation, so it's definitely kind of playing out that way. But, hey, yo, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back. We got more bracket, more tournament stuff to get through. I mean, there's a little NBA on in the background. It's basketball night here, Rem and Sam Pod on the Sunday night edition. So don't go anywhere, Chad. Don't turn the dial. We'll be right back. All right, Chad, as we return to action, we've got UCLA versus UConn starting up, Iowa versus Florida winding down. So we've got the main feed now. We had the start of the UConn-UCLA game on, but we've switched over. We got to follow the clutch minutes, the clutch time. So we've got the last four, Iowa, Florida, to lock in here, see if Iowa will, pull up the upset a little bit. The last 4 minutes has been kind of a place where they have honestly lost games. Their ability to just play and execute good basketball. It feels like maybe, some opportunities that they could have capitalized on throughout the course of the season. But, hey, speaking of that UConn-UCLA game, we've got, we were talking about Jalen Wilson earlier in the Bill Self discussion with former Michigan players. We do have another former Michigan player that is dominating the tournament here as well for UConn in Terrace Reed. So, obviously, again, every school is going to have their, remember this guy used to be in this team's jersey, or this guy almost went here, what if scenario. I mean, speaking of our rival, if we were like, what is the best hypothetical team? I mean, of course, like Burrow was literally on Ohio State at one point. So, again, like every team has their hypotheticals. But, and I don't know if we couldn't have necessarily, again, have had Terrace Reed and Jalen Wilson together, but we did have Terrace Reed on the roster, and again, Jalen Wilson was almost recruited, so shout out. But Iowa with the 3, not quite able to get it to go. They do have the 1-point lead, but the live Twitter feed on the secondary stream over here, somebody says Thomas Hawk completely taking over, chat. Hey, yo. Future first round pick, maybe former first round pick, future lottery pick. Hey, maybe, I don't know what this preference, if you get where we're going there, but we're keeping an eye on him and Condon both from that perspective, of course. And missed free throw with 3.5 minutes. There we go. The end of the game woes have started for Iowa. You hate to see it again, the 1-point lead, but not. The execution troubles have started. But yeah, anyways, speaking of Terrace Reed, the dominant game that he did have, it was a 30-20 game. 30 points, 20 rebounds, and they just showed on the broadcast before the UCLA UConn game started that it's the first time that's happened since Elvin Hayes. Hey, yo! So, we're pro Elvin Hayes on this pod. Is there, we got to find, I guess, the anti-Elvin Hayes pod, but we'll take a pro Elvin Hayes stance if somebody takes an anti one. I'm surprised, Tim Duncan never had himself a 2030 tournament game. Hey, yo. But Terrace Reed joins the legends from back in the day. A 2030 stat line. I mean, there have been a handful of them recently. I mean, Jokic has had some 20-30 games recently. I'm trying to think, did Gobert have a 20-20, like 20-point, 20-rebound game? Maybe there's been some 20-20 games. Maybe Davis had a 20. Davis, I think, maybe had a 30-20 game. Maybe even this year or last year at some point within the past game. Did Davis have a 20-30 game? He definitely had one on the Pelicans. Within the last 10 years, I think Anthony Davis has had a 30-20 game. But regardless, in terms of, I guess, the NCAA tournament, and I guess 30 points for a center in the tournament as well, too, maybe a little bit more uncommon. I guess probably not like a super common for, guys to get 20 rebounds as well, too, in a tournament game. But I would say that would probably be more realistic. I guess for anybody, it'd be more realistic to get 20 rebounds in a game, especially if you were stat chasing it, obviously. If it was an effort to get a guy 20 rebounds. But for, and especially like a non-primary playmaking, so, if you're relying on maybe some of the, getting fed a little bit from some of the guards, then, if the pace of the game changes, or if the way the defense is shading you changes, then, maybe your opportunities are gonna, come and go as the game goes on there. But regardless, again, I would have assumed that especially again, like we're saying, the centers have been such an iconic thing in college basketball. I mean, you go through the NBA, you can make the argument about whether or not you'd rather have an elite guard run your team or an elite center, and which one's more dominant, which one's actually more impactful, if you have the two-way impact of the center, that seems to be, pretty much the best thing that you can have from a basketball standpoint. And then, you get Steph Curry out there shooting three-pointers, and it's like, well, maybe we have no idea what the most important thing in basketball is. It just changes the whole perception. But regardless, in college basketball, it just seems like there's been so many historic. I mean, Pat Ewing never put up 30 points at a tournament game, but then again, like we said, but that was like with our guy Otega Owe in the last tournament game, was one of the few historic guys to have multiple 20-point, 5-rebound, 5-assist first round games. So, and again, you can probably find the stats either way, but 20-30 feels like it's pretty basic as well too for box score stuff here. So if we were able to see what Pat Ewing, and I guess was Pat Ewing like a major bucket getter as well too. So yeah, I guess we only do have his tournament records here, but his highest tournament point was, I guess, 24. I was gonna say 21, but in the round of 16 versus Loyola Chicago, 9 for 15, 21 points, 3 for 4 from the free throw line, and then he had 23 the national final against North Carolina, in which they lost. I guess the MJ game there, but and then 10 for 15 in that game. And then 8 for 16, round of 32 against Memphis State. Oh, chat, what a tough one. They lost to Memphis State. Made the national final every year except they lost to Memphis State. Was Penny Hardaway on this team? That might have been a little bit before his time. Keith Lee! Hey, yo! Keith Lee, he doesn't talk about the time that he won against a game against Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing and Michael Jackson against Keith Lee in a basketball game? If we asked the ChatGPT to simulate that, I think it might not know that that's actually a basketball game that happened. Let's see if we can get this to fire up here. Should it be a game of 21 between the three guys? Be like, no, actually, this is just a real 3-person basketball scenario that could have happened in the 70s. But what if Patrick the Hat-Trick? I mean, I'm sure there's got to be a hockey player named Patrick the Hat-Trick. What if Patrick Ewing, Michael Jackson, and hey, yo, Chan, we got to lock in on this Iowa game. They've now lost the lead. They're down 3 with 90 seconds left. I mean, we're not surprised. Florida has the ball, and Keith Lee were on where? Let's see. Hey, yo, chat. Do we have grammar? Keith Lee were on the same team. Let's see what does the ChatGPT know that this is really a real team, or is it gonna give us the fake version of it? Patrick Ewing, you're our anchor. Michael Jackson, not just the vibes. We're talking elite coordination, footwork, and stamina. MJ, basically Kyrie level handling. I guess I never thought about that. I guess I never thought about Kyrie being Michael Jackson on the basketball court. Hey, yo. I mean, shout out to Kyrie Irving. Obviously, shout out to the musical career of Michael Jackson and the biopic as well too. That is about to drop. Definitely looking forward to that. But our guy Fuqua writing, Fuqua directing, John Logan writing. We got Jafar starring. I mean, ayo. Janet Jackson apparently not approving, but it doesn't matter. We're still gonna watch. It is what it is. And then Keith Lee, our absolute chaos engine, 300 pounds. Zion comparisons for Keith Lee. Oh, chat. I don't know. I guess, obviously, Zion's an incredibly talented basketball player, so there is nothing wrong with that. But the MJ dancing around defenders, I mean, I just see, obviously, the way that MJ glides. I mean, I feel like we can all picture MJ. I mean, can we all picture MJ playing basketball? I mean, we definitely can. But can we picture Michael Jackson playing basketball? It is what it is. I mean, does he have to double check his music videos? There might be a music video where he was playing basketball. I mean, obviously, he does have magic in the Remember the Time music video. So there is that. But I guess he's not actually playing basketball. It is set in ancient Egypt. I guess they did have sports, but did they have basketball in ancient Egypt? Did they have a version of it It is what it is. Obviously, we're not trying to take away Naismith's credit. Like, Naismith is the, the OG basketball creator in the Western world. Naismith is the creator of basketball. It is what it is. But you would imagine that there had to be some version of the sport. There is, like, the sport that you hear about, people in the, like over here in the Western hemisphere, they were playing, sports like that were life and death. It is what it is. But I'm assuming that they had some version of, like, there's a higher up goal and you're trying to, score points into, like, a higher up goal. Again, all due respect to Naismith, but somebody over there in ancient Egypt was like, somebody said, do you have a way to entertain your queen? And he's like, let me hang up a couple of let's just play some basketball. I'm assuming that happened, right? That's definitely a scene. So let's, did they have basketball in ancient Egypt? Let's see what we get here, chat, for an answer. Is the chat GPT good at history? No, but they had games surprisingly close. See, no dribbling. I guess pause. Whoa, hey, yo. Shout out the ancient Egyptians, strong back in the day. But either way, obviously maybe, I was going to say the sand. Oh, chat, we're basic. It is what it is. But Kyrie, speaking of Kyrie, they said, like, Kyrie used to train with, he would just, like, dribble off of, like, grass and stuff. But I guess, I think Kevin Durant's done a lot of dribbling off of grass too. Hey, yo. But I think either way, Kyrie's, again, like, the training off the ground, the unpredictability and the unevenness of the dirt, with the way that the basketball responds to that, helps, of course, just helps the overall handle. So I'm assuming that maybe if you did have a traditional, like, bouncing basketball in ancient Egypt, they would just have insane crossovers because of the way that they would have to dial in the skill with the sand, or, it'd just be more basic maneuvers as well too. Florida down 1, just airballed a 3 with 30 seconds left, but Iowa was, again, not able to secure the defensive rebound, and Florida's going to get it back. 32 seconds left, only 4 points, so no possession for Florida. Shot clock doesn't reset. 4.7 left on that. Is that Hall with the 3? Oh, he had a good look. Iowa gets the rebound. They have a timeout. 25 seconds left. A timeout. Down 1. They can get to the rim. Pause. They can get to the rim. They can win this game. Oh, Iowa can pull up the upset. They've got the drive. The shot off the basket. No good, chat. Oh, he had a shot on goal. Couldn't quite get all the way. But, hey, yo, he definitely got a good look. Is that their guy? I want to say Spurts. Hey, yo, Bennett. Is that their guy Bennett for the lead attempt there? Was able to get into the body, maybe playing a little bit for the foul. I feel like when you overthrow that layup kind of floater shot there, that bank, I feel like that's, you're putting that extra effort in because you think that you're going to be having to fight through the contact there. And it was kind of the motion of him trying to go up and out of, trying to draw that foul, but still definitely a look that you can pull up, and he still had the space to be able to, dial that in. Aim for the corner. They teach you that in school, chat. Hey, yo, in gym class, what do you aim for? You got to aim for the corner. He aimed for the wrong side of the corner there, I guess, but it is what it is. But either way, unfortunately, I guess not able to get the look to go. 1 for 2 on the free throws there for Florida. So 70-72 still with almost, 8.99 seconds left on the clock. So once again, they can still get to a layup and opportunity to be able to keep this game alive. Not to say that a miracle 3 here wouldn't be awesome, but obviously the reliability of a drive here would be nice, and we just saw St. John's have success with that as well too. I mean, it's a historic buzzer beater nonetheless, but it's a bummer. Oh, it's a bummer beater. Hey, yo, that's a pause, but it's a bummer of a buzzer beater when you just one-on-one let the guy get all the way to the basket for a layup like that. Obviously, if it's Dame Lillard from 35 feet and it's a bad shot, and it's obviously not a bad shot if it's Dame Lillard, but if it's a bad shot and he's pulling up from 35 feet and it's a miracle attempt, then you just, you shake your hand, you say he's an awesome basketball player, it's a miracle, it goes into the highlight reels. You hate that it happened against you, but it's the greatness of a individual player. If it's not to say that, again, the St. John's guy that got to the basket wasn't a great play, it's just, you're like, oh, that's the play that we give up at the end of the game. We couldn't even get in his way. It is what it is. Oh, our guy, Sturritz. That's how Bennett Sturritz, 0 for 9 from 3-point field goal range. That feels like maybe and he finally made a 3. He's missed all 9, but he made the last one. So, I mean, that'd be great March Madness miracle stuff there. But they're going to have to inbound from the opposite baseline, so they will have to take it all the way across the court. They do have that timeout, but Sturt's got to look. Oh, they got a corner 3! Oh, he made it, chat! Iowa takes the lead by 1. 4 seconds left, so Florida will get a look, but he got the open corner 3. He took that early. He could have, with the lane there as well, he could have driven that to the basket. He had the time and the space both, but I guess we don't know Iowa well enough. I don't know if he had the dribbling ability, the ball handle. But either way, the guts to be able to take that. I guess you do have, is that Condon there to close out? Maybe Condon cuts off the drive, but there's nobody, pause behind him to be able to, it looks like to protect. I guess Ha maybe driving over, but either way, the guts to pull the trigger right there. Make that shot. Again, Florida still has an opportunity. Will Boogie Fland step up here? I feel like this is a Boogie Fland opportunity. Obviously, Ha and Condon have had big second halves here, but he has been a big scoring guard as well, too. I feel like he might want the last shot as well. But, hey, yo, Iowa chat, finally executing correctly in the final minutes here. And unless, I guess, like we're saying, we can't speak too soon, they do have to execute on defense one more play. But at least offensively, executing correctly does give them an opportunity, sets themselves up for success here to be able to, that, like we said, there was a lot of those top seeds winning in the first round, pretty top-heavy first round. So maybe that second round drama would be one of these 1 seeds losing to a 9 seed, losing to an 8 seed. And Iowa was definitely a tempting pick for that. So I know, we just checked our bracket and we picked Florida. It is what it is. But I think you go back to the bracket picks. We were talking about it. We'll take the credit. Even if it's not official, we'll take the credit. It is what it is. I guess, we got to let, again, March Madness, we got to let the rest of the game play out. 4.5 seconds is plenty of time for madness. But it is looking like, Iowa is, again, in a favorable spot at this point, and the new coach as well too. I guess we'll hold off talking about the new coach, but this is another scenario where this is now and I can fully admit we're really pushing the limits of the prisoner of the moment bias here. But just to have the conversation again, if you were asking Iowa fans with 4.5 seconds left in this game, would you trade your coach for Bill Self? He's only been there for 1 year. Again, it's new landscape. He's making his way up. He has had a great run at schools like Drake and some smaller schools, but now in the Power 5, what can he do with a Power 5 program? Iowa's been very competitive this year, against Michigan specifically, but they've been a very, very feisty team. Would Iowa trade their coach for Bill Self? They might just say, hey, it's been a good year. Let's just see. Maybe there is that instant boost that you get for having Self. So Florida, they get a look. They get a drive. They run out of time. They don't even get a look, chat. Hey, yo. They got all the way to the basket. I guess we got it playing on 2 feeds here, so we'll get to see the replay. We saw it live on the fast break feed, so now we'll see it live on the television feed. They got to the basket, but great defense by Iowa because the help was there. So the 2 defenders were definitely able to cut him off and not allow the shot. And then the pass was knocked away. At that point, though, even if he makes the pass, he kind of had to shoot off the drive just because of the amount of time that it took. I don't know if the second shot opportunity there would have had enough time to go in and pause. It would have had to have been a really, really quick tap in. But shout out, there we go. So kind of not to say the first upset of the tournament, but we've got a real powerhouse team now going home in Florida. And there we go. Now we can talk about the coach. Like I said, and even though Sturtz, even though he wasn't able to make a 3 today, he was he has been very, very good for him all season and been a 20-point-a-game scorer and a transfer with the new coach over from Drake University as well to Iceman University. Hey, yo. But either way, again, I think as they make the Sweet 16, and even though they haven't recruited a guy like Darren Peterson or Tyron Stokes, I mean, maybe Iowa would go, yeah, you know what, Bill Self is a pretty good coach. We would just, why not? But either way, there is a case that, and that's a specific one, it's his first year in the Power 5, unless he had a year in the past that I'm not remembering, but, first year in the Power 5, and again, a successful year in terms of the tournament run. So, ask him in 5 years and see if Bill Self is still not the answer, or, again, wherever Bill Self is at in his own coaching career at that point. And not to compare, sorry to Bill Self, not to compare everything there, but just to bring it up because I feel like that is one that does apply. Is Hoiberg at Nebraska? Would you take Hoiberg or Bill Self? I think maybe Bill Self at that point. But, Fred Hoiberg, shout out. He's obviously had some good college basketball teams there. So it's not nothing to, you might have to consider it if you're building a future team. But do we have to go back to, they have basketball in ancient Egypt? Yeah, okay. Back to March Madness, 14, I guess whatever the label is from that time, BC. But we've got ancient Egyptians don't have basketball as we know it, no hoops, no dribbling, no teams of 5, but they did have to play basketball games going back thousands of years where they have basketball games, ball games with hands. Whoa! Hey, yo. Archaeologist found wall painting show people tossing or catching balls. Oh, man. Okay, made of leather or papyrus, stuffed with plant material, group play. Some scenes show multiple players, possibly early team style games. The closest proto-basketball vibe. One theory suggests... the closest proto-basketball vibe. One theory suggests Egyptians played games where they tried to throw a ball at or through a target, sometimes even elevated. Though not confirmed as hoops, but it is the closest comparison. The bigger picture, basketball itself wasn't invented until 1891 by James Naismith. We're not trying to take away credit. We're just trying to find out what they had. So yeah, see, there was something like that. There had to be some sort of target attached to an elevated situation, and they were trying to, toss something through it. Hey, yo, it is what it is. Of course, back then they would cut the heads off their enemies and play basketball with that. It is what it is. But, again, there was definitely something similar to that. I don't remember exactly why we were searching for that, but regardless, at least they did have it. So shout out. We'll have to look at what was the best team from back then. Did they have an all-star team? Was there somebody that really dominated? Was there a Michael Jordan of the ancient Egypt sports world that we don't know about? I mean, there is that guy that ran the first marathon. Of course, we've really moved the timeline up. Now we're in the AD at this point. We're much more into modern times. And the guy that ran the marathon, and I don't know, the city he was going to was Marathon. His name wasn't Marathon, if I'm not mistaken. His name was like Chad Marathon. I don't think that's what it was. But let's see. Do we have records of the dominance of was there a formed league? Oh, there is no best team. There's no leagues, no standings, or recorded matchups. It is what it is. Games shown in tomb paintings, especially places like Benihana, the tombs of Benihana. Hey, yo, games have been shown at the Benihana tomb suggest that skills players perform for nobility. Best athletes were likely attached to the pharaoh's court, basically elite entertainers plus competitors. Think of them as a mix of pro athletes, performers. So it's like the celebrity game a little bit more than like real. It's like the Globetrotters more than real basketball. Like it's like Kevin Hart's winning the MVP down there, not Michael Jordan for basketball. Still, you gotta have the comedy stuff. They're in there. Strong laborers. Oh, chat. Hey, yo. ChatGPT. We tread lightly. We only read, but entertainers / coordination plus flair. So imagine basketball with court acrobatics, throwing specialists, strong laborers, and entertaining dancers. Again, quoting the ChatGPT. But ancient Egypt didn't track stats, wins, or champions. So there's no dynasty like modern teams. The idea of best team is more like who had the most skill plus status. The Pharaoh's squad. So the Pharaoh squad, I guess, was the best team. That's a pretty cool name. The Pharaoh squad. That could be like a street ball team. Is that what's the name of Tupac's team in Above the Rim? I don't think it's the Pharaoh squad, but maybe there could have been a team in the tournament that was called the Pharaoh squad. But I guess, again, they didn't have Kyle Watson or Birdie or whatever, but if build a full, no, we don't want to think who was, I mean, loaded question, but who was the first basketball player? I know that, again, it could just be Naismith or some guy from that gym, but I feel like maybe somebody from back then. The real answer, James Naismith. Yeah. Oh, Frank Mahan. There's no single player, but one name comes up, Frank Mahan. One of Naismith's students helped come up with the name basketball. He was like, well, we play with there's a basket and there's a ball. He's like, what is this, basketball? Hey, yo. And then it just stuck around. But if we're being real, the first basketball player, a whole class of YMCA students in 1891. I mean, it's very nice to, give credit to the whole group like that. And I guess, shout out Frank Mahan as well, too. So no stats for King Tut, chat. It is what it is. Apparently they didn't write They didn't think to write the stats down on the tomb wall. They didn't go, King Tut put up 45 points today. It is what it is. No stats for King Tut. Because, I feel like if say archaeologists were to go over to for an example, just to bring up an example, I feel like if archaeologists were to go over to present day North Korea, but again in 17,000 years, like ancient North Korea, I feel like once they're over there, they'll be digging up the tombs and they'll be like, oh man, Kim Jong-un was scoring 195 points a game. Like, if anything, this is a little advice to Kim Jong-un, I guess maybe a lot of advice, but I feel like you need to start putting the stats, you just write some fake stats on some walls somewhere. Just be like, yeah, we had just get the fake stats documented. Start a fake big three, get ice, I guess he's got Dennis Rodman in the, in his cabinet. I don't know where Dennis Rodman is over there, but he's got to get Dennis Rodman to be like the Ice Cube of North. Hey, shout out to Ice Cube, but he can start the big three. I guess I'm sure they've got a lot of people that love basketball over there, so you can just get a basketball league, and then not to disrespect those people, but you just say that Kim Jong-un scores like 35, 75 points a game. Every game. It is what it is. And then, when they look back in history, it's just like, this is the best basketball player that's ever played. But King Tut career stats apparently non-existent. Drip rating 99.9. Undisputed GOAT in jewelry. Lame. That's lame, chat. Scouting report. Elite gold accessories. Probably weighted more than a modern jersey. So I guess that's why he wasn't scoring. His jersey was too heavy. Hey, yo. It is what it is. Royal status, automatic first pick. So yeah, that's, you imagine the Pharaoh in a pickup game is like, even the the fourth pick is a little aggressive. It's like, sorry, Pharaoh, but Jafar over here is so good. I mean, we just have to pick him. There's no denying it. He's gonna cross you up. It is what it is. King Tut lived around 1300 BC, over 3,000 years before basketball existed. So unfortunately, there is no stats. Can we see it? We need to see a picture of this fit, though. Can we see a picture? Ancient Egypt jersey, chat. Hey, yo. Pharaoh level jersey. It is what it is. I guess it's not going to necessarily be associated with a certain team unless the Pharaoh squad is the team that... Chad, he's just playing in the sarcophagus. I guess that's why it's a lot heavier than a jersey. ChatGPT not feeling creative today, not feeling like generating an image. It is what it is. But gold funerary mask worn in burial. made of gold plus gemstones. Headpiece, memes, crown. I guess, and what did ancient Egypt allow in terms of accessories? Did they allow him to wear, cool headpieces? Pause, because obviously if King Tut was playing in the modern NBA, they would take away all his cool jewelry and all his cool accessories. It is what it is. Adam Silver, bring the headbands back. Bring the Tide headbands back. It is what it is. You're gonna add 2 teams. You know what really that would honestly, that's a hot take, chat, but I think it's true. I think that would do better for the league ratings than add 2 teams. And make no mistake, we want to add 2. I feel like me and Sam would love the idea of adding 2 teams to the NBA. The whole idea of getting to watch the process. I mean, hey yo, we're basketball nerds. The idea of watching the process of an expansion draft and that just whole situation playing out, we want to see it. It hasn't been something that has happened in our cognitive basketball lifetimes, or even our cognitive NFL lifetimes. Of course, the Texans did get added to the NFL in 2002, but again, we weren't necessarily locked in for sports memories back then. I can say we because we're the same age. I guess we can't assume that. Obviously Sam maybe Sam was just locked in with memories at 1.5, 2 years old. I guess we'll have to go double check. What is Sam's earliest sports memory? Hey, yo, a little, what was like a class introduction question. It is, that'd be a lot better of a class introduction question. Maybe the teachers need to use ChatGPT. Did they ever think about that? Teachers, giving all these students crap out here for using ChatGPT. You guys need to use ChatGPT to cook up better intro questions. You guys out here making everybody tell one interesting thing about yourself. Do better. Hey, yo, we've been overusing that question for years. I know, the teacher will be like, well, maybe forces the student to have a creative answer. But it's like, you're the teacher over here. Set the bar high. What kind of performance do you want to see from the student? Do you want to see us be creative? Do you want to see us use ChatGPT? Then use it. Hey, yo, that's just a little spice to the question is all you need. That's all you need. Tell us one interesting thing about yourself. How about what's your earliest sports memory? You don't even necessarily have to be a major sports fan. I know the major sports fans in the room are being like, oh, I hate sports. I don't want to answer that question. But if you think about it, you're just like, okay. I might not be, I guess, again, we probably like TV shows more than a non-sports fan, likes sports. But it'd be like, what's your earliest TV show memory? Again, I might be like, well, I'm more of a movie guy, but I do have one. I could probably conjure one up, and it would be, I guess, maybe we just make the list. I don't know. What's send this to all the teachers in America. Be like, hey, yo. Next, and shout out to the teachers. They're the heroes, so we're not trying to, we're just trying to help out. That's all it is. But it is what it is. I mean, obviously, what are we going to rant about going to school? I feel like you look at our school history, probably a little bit easier than most. But regardless, the times that you do have to, we say the times that you do have to go to school. But, the times that you do have to go to school, it is, it's not fun. It is what it is. But regardless, that is up there with the least fun parts of school, I guess. See, I mean, I don't know what that says about, your school going 10. You could just say like all of homework is the least fun part of school. But after that, the having to answer what is the most interesting part about yourself. Because even if you have, I guess, and, I'll pause. Because I was say, even if you have interesting parts, I mean, hey, yo, what's the most interesting part about myself? I have a 12-inch dick. Hey, yo. But, either way. What are we saying? Now we're getting we're getting sidetracked, chat. We should have answered that question more confidently back in the day. It is what it is. But what's the most interesting part? Just immediately get kicked out of the class? It is what it is. But what are we talking about? We had King Tut's fit from back in the day. Speaking of interesting parts, was King Tut packing? Is ChatGPT allowed to answer that question? Hey, yo. That's another thing that you need to do in these sarcophagus, chat. Hey, yo. Just put on the sarcophagus. I scored 20 points a game and just a massive, massive, massive bulge on the sarcophagus. It is what it is. Be like, I don't even know if this is really. I guess that's what. Who was the Russian guy that did that? Are we allowed to look that up? Who was the Russian czar with the huge? Hey yo. But don't they have it in a jar? And I mean, that's, shout out to our Russian audience, but I feel like we don't, our Russian audience is dwindling because make no mistake, if Rem and Sam videos ever do get banned, they get banned in Russia. It is what it is. We're not calling it out. We're just looking at the stats. But shout out to the Russian audience that is, filtering through the the band Rem and Sam. I guess Rem and Sam, we're not out, I guess, obviously, we tread lightly. We're just talking about, the podcast listeners across the world. But regardless, what are we saying? I guess now we don't even know what we're saying. Chat, we were lost in the weeds. Just bring up, and again, obviously, there are good podcast listeners all over the world. So we just, we tread lightly. But King Tut playing basketball back in the day. We were talking about the guy that has his in the jar. Hey, yo, it is what it is. I guess that's not even a term for it, but I guess in an effort not to get more videos banned across different countries, what are we saying? Maybe we'll speak lightly, but I guess obviously just in terms of the word selection, again, obviously not speaking lightly and everything. We'll address topics when they need to be addressed. We're in the weeds, chat. We are in the weeds. It is what it is. We need to get back to the hoops tape scrolls. Oh no. But Bill Self recruiting class. What's the name of this Kansas coach? Shout out to Iowa. UConn versus UCLA. UCLA without their best player is hanging in there. They're down by 2 with 4 minutes left, and I know obviously we have a couple of other. Arizona chugging along versus Utah State. I guess probably obviously expected to take this one pretty easily, but looks like they are going to do so there. And then we got Alabama versus Texas Tech as the last game to start up for the night. I was gonna say I thought we had a 3-game slot there for the end, but yeah, looks like we are a couple of minutes away from that one firing up still. But yeah, that one is an even matchup there, so hopefully that is another competitive game to end out the night. But I guess for the bracket, we were gonna talk about a cuff as well too. Speaking of good performances, obviously, and the effect that could have on draft season, I feel like he might be the highest riser at this point. Pause for that. Again, the work that he has done scoring all year has helped build him up into this territory range already. And I guess what's Tankathon's updated? Tankathon updated the NBA rankings 17 days ago. Hey, yo. I think Tankathon might be on spring break this week. It is what it is. But, once Tankathon gets back to updating the player rankings, we'll see if they move a cuff up past some of these other guards. And again, maybe the rest of the tournament for Houston and Illinois could kind of determine what happens with those guys. And you do, again, have the whole conversation of, the scoring factor versus sort of the team factor, the playmaking defense nature. But, Flemings is a little bit of a score first-ish type of guard as well, too. And I guess last update as well, he did move, Tankathon moved Dembasta up to number 1, Peterson down to number 2. And I guess the Kings are now the 4th pick. Pacers, Wizards at number 2. The Wizards trade for Trae Young and Anthony Davis, and now the number 2 pick? Oh, no, chat, that's not going well. And then Cam Boozer to Brooklyn at 3. Ooh. I mean, Cam Boozer would definitely be like a fun... I feel like, is he a point guard enough for that team? I'm not sure. He kind of is, though. He kind of is. It's kind of a weird playmaking situation that would... kind of a player that they would draft, I feel like. But they actually need as well, too. But hopefully he doesn't just, hopefully anybody that doesn't go there gets just buried in that, Brooklyn market. But, the Wizards haven't necessarily been obviously the spotlight team over the last couple of years. The Pacers, obviously with Halliburton, is a good situation, hopefully, for the draftee there that they'll find themselves into. But, I think a Cuff could definitely play himself up to number 4. And if you do have a team like Sacramento in that 4th spot, again, Caleb Wilson, you start looking at the modern NBA, who's the versatility type player. If you start again having questions about this guy as a number 1 versus this guy as a number 2. You know, maybe again you resort to the sort of safety option as to what maybe some of these wings could bring on the court. And even like a Mets game as well too, you see him ranked above a Cuff right now. Like a Cuff is definitely a better basketball player right now than a Met for sure. But I mean, a Met had some really great scoring moves tonight, had a couple of nice fadeaways, and I mean, you see he's, you know, closing in on 20 a game himself already as a freshman. And like we're saying, just a much, you know, a much simpler, much, you know, do you say pause, a much rawer offensive game than a Cuff, but definitely less usage as well too. But you could see his ability to be a player next to other players, like we're saying, translate into the NBA maybe a little bit more easily. But again, a team like Sacramento at number 4, Utah at number 5, they have some guys. Again, Dallas at 6, Cooper Flag. Maybe the Grizzlies at 7, or if they jump up in the lottery, they might be another one as well too if they don't lose out, or if they lose out on the Freda. But I guess point being, outside of the other 3 guys, he is that guy where he might be the 4th guy after those guys because of his ability to run an offense, or if you think that he might actually, I guess the point, and this is with Peterson as well too, where again their ability to score can almost like, you know, become a little bit of a downside of their game in some ways, where that's not obviously the right way to say it, but it's just like the usage and the style at which he's going to get his points are of course going to be a little bit detrimental to the team in some type of way, if like we're saying, you know, the ability to help improve the game around the rest of the guys is not there. But he has been elevating this Arkansas team this entire run, so it's difficult not to say that. And again, he's been kind of, and not to say that we've been as locked in as some people, but just on the outside looking in, it seems like he's been kind of the best player in college basketball. Like I know that, you know, again, for the season, Duke's the best team. Do you say Boozer, best player on the best team? Peterson, is he the most talented scorer? DeBasta's had some of the most impressive stat lines and some of the most impressive performances. I guess Cuff at 23, yeah, DeBasta at 25. Like, DeBasta has more points. But with the success of the team, like we're saying that Arkansas has had as well, I think it's been difficult to argue that over the last couple of months that anybody's been playing better than him from the standpoint. And he's not, again, like a, you know, an older guard turning, he's not an older guard making this run and having this surge at the end of the season. He is on the same draft timeline as all of these guys. He is just playing better than them right now. So, you know, as we try to learn stuff about the draft going forward, I mean, you're always going to be learning stuff about the draft every year. But that is, you know, something that you have to be honest with yourself about as well too, and not obviously get too committed to what the preset idea of some of these guys was going into the season. Like, yes, you know, you can't overreact to just one season. Like, in some ways, they do have, you know, their full basketball developmental careers up until this point that have gone into those preset rankings. Like, they're not just nothing. You know, there is, again, 4 to 5 years of some competitive basketball observations being happened compared to the 1 year. You could, of course, go to the level of competition of like being, you know, a freshman, or do we start getting basketball rankings for people in like 8th grade at this point? We really might. You know, the AAU circuit, like 7th and 8th grade, is probably when they start getting on the radar for people to know where the names are going to start falling in the order there. But regardless, you know, you don't want to overreact again to just one season situation. All that stuff matters. What is this, a donut bracket, chat? Hey, yo, is this this is a Charles Barkley situation if we ever saw one. What are they doing? I don't know what the donuts, how they correlate to the teams, but they've got literally one, not just one donut for every team, but one donut for every spot on the bracket. So they've got donuts going, you know, all the way to the Final Four as well. It looks like they do have consistency. So yeah, some donuts do. I guess, are they just literally picking which donuts are the best donuts? Hey, yo, we might have to pause this whole thing. I don't know. What brand are they using? What is this all, you know, an ad? is this, they're not pitting different brands against each other. It's not like Krispy Kreme versus this spot versus this versus Dunkin' versus, you know, wherever. I guess we're not even that locked into the, you know, I guess if we say we're not locked into the donut game, you know, that's gonna maybe cast us in a light that I don't know if we necessarily, you know, want to be cast in. But we're in terms of snacking, you know, I get pause. What are we saying? But you know, we're just not as locked in as like where do you get the best ones. But either way, it does look like, and I guess we need to get like a still. We need to get like a graphic that shows the flavors. The problem is they have the donuts labeled as the actual team. So like the donut, the Yukon donut versus the Florida donut. Like I do gotta say the Florida donut, pause, is that like a Chex Mix situation? Like, I do feel like that as a topping for a donut is probably a little crafty, like a little too much. So that is probably a little overrated. You know, just a simple, just give me like, you know, obviously Krispy Kreme, the simple, just, you know, hey, what do we say? Just the original OG glazed donut is just the best. It is what it is. But, you know, again, this, for the most part, the simpler the better. You know, you start going the different flavors, different, you know, again, pause, colors of glaze. You know, you start going sprinkles and stuff on top. That's fine. I personally am not like huge sprinkles on it type of guy. But again, you start going like chocolate chips and things. It does start to mess with like what is the consistency of a donut, you know, and the eatability of it as well too. Like some of those toppings, you know, you take one bite off the donut and it's like they're just balanced on there perfectly, so then they all fall off. I mean, that's a problem I think with through food just in general, is presentation versus, of course, eating practicability. Like I think that's a very common, you know, sandwich issue. I mean, speaking of, literally they cut to a Taco Bell commercial where you've got the crunch wraps. I mean, literally, has a restaurant mastered eatability, you know, pause, ayo, but eatability other than Taco Bell? And what's this purple Mountain Dew that they're introducing, chat? We're not even a Mountain Dew person, but I mean, you do got to say that they do master the colors. Obviously, the Baja Blast, if anything, is just the best looking soda of all time. It is what it is. It's just a 10 out of 10, chat. It's just the, you know, it's the it's the 96 Jada Pickett of sodas. It is what it is. Hey, yo. Was that an ultra specific comparison? You know, shout out. It is what it is. Was that, what year is Nutty Professor? 96 and Set It Off, both same year? I mean, come on, chat. What are we doing? But regardless, yeah, what are we talking about? We're talking about Darius the Cuff here. Really is what we're trying to mention. But yeah, so I guess the point is, you know, I guess here we'll see where he was rated for the class, because again, that, as much as you know, say that it's dumb or how much it should impact, or, you know, how much you should take it into consider, you know, it's all on a case by case basis. At some point, he was number 5, so he's actually lowered down in the draft rankings, you know, at number 8. But I feel like he's probably been, you know, even a little lower in the lottery. They don't have like a draft tracker here for what his, you know, what his path would have been, what his different rankings would have been over the course of the year. But yeah, I know Mikael Brown was definitely higher up at some point in the year there. I know Kingston Flemings has also risen, so maybe a Cuff was over Flemings, but, you know, behind Mikael Brown at some point, pause. So maybe just, again, the orders has changed, but his overall spot hasn't. But, you know, Koa Pete was higher up draft boards at some point. I want to say even like, you know, Patrick Nwamba as well too was maybe a little bit higher up at certain points. But regardless, that is interesting. I didn't even realize that he was that highly. You know, what was the last time we even looked at this? I guess we looked at Peterson, but we didn't scroll down. It is what it is. We didn't see a Cup at number 5. And again, those top 3 guys have been in conversation all year and managed to maintain those top 3 spots. Met's been pretty consistent. You know, like we're saying, Brown's been able to stay in the lottery. Wilson, Berrios. I guess Arenas hasn't necessarily been there, but was there an injury or a medical thing? I guess, you know, obviously athletes, kids, USC, medical stuff, you know, obviously, you know, shout out Bronny. You know, I don't know if that was a necessary thing to bring up there, but again, I don't know if I guess the point was, I don't know if is that who I'm thinking of, or did he, like, you know, have some type of season injury situation, or was it just minutes here? We can see what was going on. And he is super talented as well, too. So it's not like just because he's not projected the draft stuff the same way. It is, still, like we're saying, a very talented player that you have to keep an eye on for maybe next year, a higher lottery pick as well. And I mean, he could definitely just go to the NBA and get to a team and be like, I guess they have him at 34 right now. If he has a really good pre-draft process, again, as a freshman, highly recruited, definitely could get back into the first round. Maybe like maybe 25 to 20 would be the high side of the range for him. You see Chris Sinek Jr. here for Houston. Again, maybe his draft stock to recruit ranking is a little bit lower. Koa Pete, Mullins, Malik Thomas. I mean, for the most part, honestly, the top 10 of this ranking has been pretty good. Like, all those guys are basically still lottery picks. Kingston Flemings has gone up. I mean, McKinney's been awesome this year. I hope McKinney stays for another year, but, we'll have to see again how soon guys commit. And obviously the NIL thing is going to help maybe some of these guys that wouldn't be, again, top of the first round. Is the 35th pick in the draft better than being a top NIL player? You might just be a top NIL player at that point. But, I mean, if you really believe in a Cuff's talent, and I don't think I could still, again, put him into the top 3, but again, with his recruiting ranking, like, it already proved that he was at one point viewed to be, the top of the talent outside. If, again, we say respectfully to a Cuff, like, that's a tier 1, and he could definitely, be considered into that tier 1. We can make tier 1 a 4-person tier. See, it's interesting. It's different. Like, can you make tier 1 a 4-person tier if you don't think the 4th person is actually better than anybody in that tier? And I'm not trying to be, again, he could definitely be. I'm just saying, as I would view it right now, I don't think I could actually talk myself into taking a Cuff over any of those 3. But, again, he could be better. And I don't know if I would, take any, I guess we'd have to just, like we're saying, continue to look at the Fleming, Wilson, Wagler tier, a Met tier of guys as well, too. But, like, Brown versus a Cuff, I know Brown maybe has more playmaking upside, but I don't know. Like, again, a Cuff scoring has just been super dynamic. And to see it translated into team success as well, too, is, again, something that you do have to definitely take into consideration. And I don't know if his Arkansas team is necessarily, like, again, going back to the Dembasta Peterson conversation, like, if it is a ton better. I mean, I need to watch more Peterson tape. It is what it is, because his offensive game is super, super refined. So I know that a Cuff a better athlete than Peterson. I don't know, maybe slightly quicker first step. I don't know. But again, Peterson is such a dynamic scorer that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But their numbers are similar enough that I feel like it's not so far off between those two guys in the draft. Again, maybe you go team need. What is the right fit for some of these wings around some of the other creators that the other guys have? But just straight up basketball talent, I don't know if Peterson and a Cuff are that much different. And in Atlanta, I mean, New Orleans winning a little bit and getting that pick out of the top of the draft, is definitely, again, maybe the perception of that. Obviously, if it's in the lottery, Queens had a great year and has definitely made that a little bit more of a tolerable trade. But from a team building standpoint, it is going to be a what if scenario anyways. Like, I'm not saying it's, is it going to ruin the Pelicans franchise or dramatically help the Hawks win the finals? Again, we'll have to see what each team does with those picks. And maybe Derek Queen becomes the 7th best player in the league at some point. And then it's like, well, yeah, you trade 4 first-round picks for him, and then it wouldn't matter. But if they do end up, like we're saying, getting a Cuff with that pick, like, he is the guy out of this range that you're like, yeah, he could be that kind of franchise-ish type guy. Or just, again, specifically him in Atlanta. Like, that is a fun combo for him to get to be that bucket getter next to a guy like Jalen Johnson and Recherche, which maybe need another creator there, but also can do the defensive rebounding stuff around him as well, too, to help him out. I know, do you say, does he get redundant with Nickeil Alexander-Walker? But I don't know if that's the anti-draft him case there. necessarily. I mean, the Grizzlies are tempting as well too if they feel like that would be like a almost like a Ja Morant reset, but him and Ja together, I mean, in theory, the best version of Ja would obviously that would be fun. But who knows if he's the best guard and then Ja's the second best guard, if that's like a 52 win team in the regular season, who's to say? But yeah, he might now be officially like fourth guy on the board here. Let's see. Actually, we haven't gone to the Ringer draft board yet, but shout out. We were shouting him out. So let's see. Do they still have the old NBA draft.theringer.com going here? I'm assuming March Madness. Hey, yo, it's got to be in full effect. Here we go. Yeah, Peterson, number 1. What do we got for comps? Oh, beautiful design, Chad. They always do a great job. But, hey, yo, crushed it again this year. Rem and Sam approval. It is with IT. They said they love it. So what do we got here for comparisons? Do they have any? I mean, you got to. The whole point of a draft board is just to do a comparison. It is what it is. 2023 Carlos Alcaraz. Hey, yo, now that is a comparison, right? I mean, Alcaraz is like, that's almost a Wemby level comparison. That might be a little too much. Kobe Buffkin is like the little tiny comparison here. Because we got Donovan Mitchell post leg strengthening surgery. Jalen Green, but upside down. I don't know what that means. And then Bradley Beal as well. Beal is an interesting one. Beal is in that Booker range where it's like, again, Beal and Mitchell are different players, I think. And maybe they can't, like, Beal can definitely take more of that responsibility. Again, best version of Bradley Beal. But he is not as ball dominant, as quick of a, well, Beal's maybe got an underrated quick first step. But, like, in theory, he's more of a mid-range triple threat, 1-2 dribble pull-up type of guy, quick shots, versus, again, like Mitchell's going to rip through and get to the basket and kind of these like longer swooping drives. And Peterson's kind of a combo of both. But, yeah, again, the Mitchell combo does seem to be the fair comparison there. So they have a cuff at 6 right now. So wait a second. It would be, Wilson and then Wagler at the 4-5 spots. So like we say, we do draft based on comparisons. Wilson, they do have compared to Jetpack, Jaren Jackson, Gerald Wallace, Perry Jones III, Sean Kemp meets Gumby. I mean, Sean Kemp, 2013, Carlos Alcaraz and Sean Kemp are strong comparisons here. I'm not going to lie. Jaren Jackson Jr., Jetpack Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. now versus Jaren Jackson Jr. when he was entering the draft, because Jaren Jackson Jr. entering the draft, again, was like, he's going to be stretch 4, yes, but the defensive shot blocking thing has been there, but he is more now of a 3-and-D wing, like a shot blocking 3-and-D wing. Whereas like Jaren Jackson's like John Wall without the ball handling abilities. Hey, yo. And with John Wall without any of the offensive game is Jaren Jackson. 6'9", non-offensive John Wall is basically what we're looking at. But either way, I don't know. I don't know if that's, I guess we're not sitting here trying to tear apart the comparisons. But I guess to see what they're thinking for, point is to try to see what we're looking at for a cuff here. I guess do-it-all game manager, defensive role projections helper, hopefully. Hey, yo. So, again, that's sort of maybe the thing that would separate Peterson apart is if he is, more consistently locked in on the defensive end. Rock solid, pause, steady as a metronome, pure point guard who feels the game at a high level. So, hey, yo, we're perhaps, not giving him enough credit as a playmaker as well, too. Weaknesses, build, posture, flexibility, would at times drive toward the left side of the basket, float toward baseline, shoot with his right hand. Okay. His side-to-sideline movement patterns are a nice tool in his back pocket when he's gotten switched against a big, but he could probably be a little more assertive about taking dribble pull-up from 3. Okay, so comparisons. Darren Williams, Randy Foye, Walter Clayton Jr., and Gilbert Arenas. Well, chat, this is the perfect 4 comparisons for the Rem and Sam pod. It is what it is, because I would say we're pro Randy Foye. I don't know if I can speak for Sam on that matter, but I'm going to go ahead and say that the Rem and Sam pod is pro Randy Foye, and we're also pro Gilbert Arenas and pro Darren Williams. I feel like we can speak for Sam in those categories as well, too. Again, if we're talking basketball career, and, we're pro anybody that is bold with the takes. We're pro bold takes on the Rem and Sam pod. You know, obviously we could go case by case for everything. Again, ayo, obviously we're not pro everything the Rem and Sam pod does all the time. But ayo, either way, what are we saying? We're pro the basketball career of Gilbert Arenas, and we're pro the basketball career of Darren Williams. Darren Williams is, you know, again, obviously would you think of like Kyrie and Darren Williams being in the same range? Darren Williams, underrated athlete. You do think of parts of his career where maybe he was a little bit of a, you know, not a slower player, but like a herky-jerky type of player instead of a smoother line driver. Again, obviously Randy Foye, one of the smoothest drivers in the NBA. I don't know if that's what we're saying, but Arenas was maybe a little bit more about that as well too. What's it say here? Quote, given his stature as a sturdily built 6'2" lead guard with a powerful crossover and ability to get to his spots in the mid-range, the image of Darren Williams is hard to shake. Pause. I mean, again, that's fine with me. Our guy Yaxel's at 11. I mean, yeah, Yaxel, definitely get him in the lottery. Amet, apparently the Ringer, not a big Amet fan, got him sliding down the list a little bit. But yeah, apparently they are not, you know, as worried about a playmaking ability there. Again, obviously it would just be us not having watched enough Arkansas. But if he does have that ability to run a complete offense as well, you know, you do have the 6'3", 190. There is a little Darius Garland that does get brought up there as well too. But Darius Garland, I don't think was this high of a usage player, you know, for better or worse. When he was in school, I don't believe so. We can go back and double check that as well. But yeah, either way, shout out. Obviously been a super impressive run. And, you know, hopefully we are able to get that high level Arizona versus Arkansas matchup. I guess we've got Utah State down 6 points with 4 minutes left. So if Utah State, you know, gets the crazy upset here, then maybe a Cuff is looking at a, you know, an even better run. Who's to say? But that would really be, again, the fun, the fun bar raising matchup there to see him compete against that team. But yeah, again, I've really started to, you know, obviously not say that we weren't buying in on these prospects. And shout out, just because Boozer has one close game against Siena, you know, all of a sudden we're doubting our guy. They came back and they were cooking against TCU. I guess to double check his stat line here in this game. 19 points, 7 for 10 from the field, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Like, I mean, hey, yo, the man was back. The man was back. But the other players around him have definitely showed the high level, you know, the high potential of their games as well too. So definitely a little bit more open-minded. And it was definitely like, you know, again, not to disrespect Boozer's game too much. He's still a great player. But it was like, oh, Boozer's easily the #1 player in this class. And not to say that that's not true, but it's just like, oh, yeah, this is really like a, you know, obviously a super talented class. And there's cases to be made for a ton of guys here. So, again, I wouldn't necessarily say that I would take a Cuff over Boozer. That would almost just go, you know, pause into the size matter of it, where you know that Boozer, if he's committed defensively, is able to probably not be a liability on that end. You know, is he going to be an all defensive level guy? Probably not. But I would say that, you know, again, he would be hopefully a plus defender in the league, plus creator, you know, plus scorer. You know, again, maybe that like third team all NBA type of range would be like a high side for him. And that would be, I mean, obviously an awesome player as well too. Now, again, could you see like maybe again like second team for Peterson to Baxter or something? But I think you could maybe see that for a Cuff as well too. And maybe that's the point that I'm trying to make, is I think I am sold on the fact that the high side, you know, pause, the high end potential of a Cuff is up there with everybody in these drafts. And I feel like there is always somebody like, I mean, obviously, but there's always that, again, that score in the draft where you're like, okay, maybe, and the undersized guard as well too. You know, undersized guard, heavy usage, can definitely get buckets, can probably get him in the NBA, but, you know, do you want to invest that much usage of your team into those shots? I don't know why. Like, I think like a Nick Smith profile. Like, again, he didn't have obviously the college production, that a Cuff did, he did have, great moments for sure, and showed the ability to be able to get to be that type of bucket getter. But again, to consistently lift his team the way that a Cuff has had, like, that is the real, determining factor that is kind of changing a little bit. I guess like Trey Johnson for Texas last year. Oh, or Fears. Fears is definitely the better example because Trey Johnson is definitely a little bit more, 6'5", 190. A little taller, but not necessarily like, crazier. I guess once you get into that 6'5" range, even if you're a little skinnier, you're not necessarily going to get like the defensive, where it's like, oh, he's never going to be good on defense. When you start getting like 6 foot, even 6'3", it's not never. Because Steph Curry's 6'3". Steph Curry is a good defender, so that's the baseline. If Steph Curry can be they silence us when we're talking about Steph Curry, chat. Hey, yo, it is what it is. Are the LeBron people producing the pod today? Rem Sam Potter produced by Spring Hill? I don't think that's what's happening, but yeah, like Fears is that guy from the last class where it's like, okay, is Fears gonna run your offense someday, or is he gonna be, the sixth man off your bench because of his, burst scoring type of abilities? Where again, maybe like Edgecombe and Knuppel maybe playing off of Dillingham for Kentucky was definitely that guy in 2024. And, you hope that Minnesota is able to continue to bring him along there as well, too. And obviously there are other guys that fit that profile, but for them to be the top 10-ish picks in the draft as well, too, is kind of what we're looking at. I would say we maybe didn't really have one in 2023, but maybe just because Scoot didn't go to college. Scoot, Scoot, just because he went to the G League. That's all we're saying. But you got maybe Buffkin for Michigan would have been the closest, NCAA player for that. Because Anthony Black, again, more like a defensive, rebounding, versatile type of guard, if he figures out the scoring game, is going to take it to another level. And, was already kind of figuring that stuff out as well, too. But, again, like Buffkin in Atlanta, it's just, not quite the ability to give him the keys to the offense at any point. Then maybe like Ivy and Mathurin both kind of in that range for 2022. But again, and I would say that, if we're looking at like even Fears from the recent draft, I don't think you would have necessarily. Fears, incredibly talented offensive player. You could see it at Oklahoma. I guess Jalen Green, maybe, Jalen Green versus Evan Mobley is definitely the, extreme version of that conversation. And Mitchell, Davion Mitchell going 9th in 2021, like he is more of a defender, 3-point shooter type of guy. Then again, he was more like a primary scorer. Same Primo, Ayo, you forget about the Josh Primo run. Still believe in the talent. Speaking of, I guess what was the Big Three thing we were saying about? Or Dennis, the North Korean Big Three league is gonna have Josh Primo. Ayo. It is what it is. Either way, so yeah, Book Night. Like Book Night for Charlotte would have definitely been that in 2021. But again, a Cuff way better season than any of those guys we just mentioned. With all due respect to Jeremiah Fears and James Bouknight. It's just they were not able to lift their teams the way that a Cuff was, and that matters. That stuff, I think, is translatable, in some way. I don't know if you can necessarily, always pin down, pause, why a player is able to translate the wins. Again, there is those playmaking elements, the defensive rebounding elements, and just, the commitment to the full part of the games. That's just like, okay, again, maybe not everybody has that, but, again, if you do, then obviously that is going to lend you to being more of a winning player than not. But sometimes it's not always, identifiable immediately why some guys have more success winning than other guys do. Again, for Darius Cuff, maybe we go team around him, coach, Calipari versus Bill Self. You go Big 12 versus SEC. Though maybe the SEC is a little more difficult. I don't know. We'd have to go look at those conferences again. But, there might be reasons why a Cuff is his team is having a more positively viewed season than Darren Peterson. And again, it's just at this moment in the tournament of one team exiting and one team being able to continue. But And one round, I wouldn't necessarily say after one round. If a Cuff does end up losing to Arizona, even if it's, it just depends. Close game. We'll see how it goes. But if it's a one round more than Peterson, it's not gonna be like, well, he's on such more of a winning team than Peterson, because Peterson did take his team to the tournament and the conference tournament, just like a Cuff did. So there's that equal conference success there for both of those guys. But like I'm saying, it is something that was translatable, directly affecting his team in a very, very positive way this year. That I think, is he going to be a number one guy taking his team to the conference finals? I still, like I'm saying, for Peterson, I don't know if he's going to lead an offense, but can he be the number one point guard for a very, very good team? Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. If you're the Rockets, would you rather have a Cuff right now or Reed Sheppard? Like, hey, I don't know if that's a fair comparison, but Reed Sheppard was the fourth pick in the draft, and he has been, really developing his game, showing himself to be a impact guy. So, we mentioned Garland earlier. Again, they're probably in different tiers at this point. A really good guard is obviously, it feels like the separation of that, again, is like you're either leading the team or, you're a little bit more, with all due respect, like a little bit more, I just can only think of the word replaceable at this point. But again, just from an NBA roster standpoint, it's how we're using the terminology there. So a guy like, would you trade LaMelo for a Cuff right now? Maybe that's a good comparison. Is a Cuff LaMelo? Like, he might be a little more refined though with the shot taking. And I don't know, like LaMelo, maybe it's the volume and the shot selection, obviously, that gets him in trouble from 3-point range, but he might be a better distance shooter than a Cuff a Cuff's 44%. A Cuff's just better. And so you might make that trade. And again, LaMelo's second overall pick. I know that, again, what's the fair comparison there? Would you trade Knuppel for a Cuff? That's the type of versatility that you're like, he's not going to absorb the offense if you do have him playing next to, say, Cooper Flagg like it was at Duke, or if he's in a situation, if Knuppel ends up being the best player on the team, do we think Knuppel is going to be, who's the white guard that led his team to the finals? Hey, is it going to be John Stockton? Again, obviously Stockton wasn't able to get the win, and he did have Malone as well too. Hey, I guess, has there ever been a white guard to lead his team to the finals? Ginobili, shout out. In the modern NBA, who are we missing, chat? Who are we missing? Nobody, because I don't think it's ever. Oh, Jason Kidd, like, in different style. I guess. Now we gotta go 23andMe, every guy that's ever played in the league. But I guess what are we saying? The Kidd. If we just were to compare Kidd and Knuppel, more of a playmaker. Knuppel a little more score first, a little more perimeter oriented. But maybe you wouldn't quite make that trade. But either way, like, I wouldn't trade Castle for a Cuff, but we wouldn't trade Castle for anybody in the league. We wouldn't even trade Castle for Wemby, and they're on the same team. I don't know how that would work. But I mean, what box does he not check? I mean, I guess the 6.5 assists, 44% from 3, 23 points a game. Like, it is a pretty convincing argument that he is putting together at this point. So again, the long-term abilities we'll continue to see. Like, Fleming's is definitely very interesting, and so is Wagler. Like, I definitely like I really, the more we watch all these players, the more you do. Like we were saying, 4 to 5 at the beginning of the year. Now it is like, okay, maybe there are tiers, but tier 2 is just as intriguing as a tier 2 as tier 1 is as a tier 1, if that makes sense. Again, it may be like, yes, there is a little bit of a talent separation here, but I love the options. And are you supposed to expect franchise guys at the 8th pick in the draft? Like, we do understand kind of typically how the perception of the tiers do work year to year. But like I'm saying, this Wilson to a Cuff tier here on Tankathon is definitely fun. And even tier 3, like for a tier 3, it's a good tier 3. I mean, it's just a good draft. It's been said, but it's just a good draft this year. And it's going to be fun, figuring out exactly what this order is going to be for these different player groupings. Because as much as, you may say, like, all these guys can be impactful, again, there's going to be obviously different, like, somebody here is going to ascend to be the All-NBA guy, and we don't quite know who it is yet, and somebody's going to be like, one of like a good starter, multiple years, not necessarily a bad pick, but it's going to be like, oh, we could have had so and so. What if we had just made that one pick and then we had the All-NBA guy instead of the, again, good starter, whatever. Like we've talked about with Sohan and Jalen Williams in the past. Obviously, unfortunately, for the Spurs and for Sohan's relationship, anyways, that's something that wasn't able to continue at some point in this season. Now as he's in New York. But, it's like, okay, there is a world where it's like, obviously Sohan, good impact player, that type of pick where you get those good starter minutes, but then Jalen Williams goes a couple picks later and you're like, but we could have had the All-NBA guy. So, again, that's going to be the situation where one is, it's, not to assume now, but just to throw out names like, Keaton Wagler, good starter for sure. And even the Mavericks with Cooper Flagg, you're like, we have Cooper Flagg, we have a franchise guy, we're fine there, he'll be the lead guy, and Wagler is good complimentary next to him, but a Cuff's over there making second team All-NBA. Like, what if we had Flagg and a Cuff? So, again, I think there's going to be a lot of production and a lot of really, really good players out of this class, obviously, but getting that order right to, obviously, like, I guess, the Castle Recherche example is a good example of that. Like, Recherche is, and maybe there is still a level of him being, again, that consistent starter that still needs to happen a little bit. But, he is a guy that definitely seems like he's going to be a really, really, really good NBA player for, hopefully a lot of years. But Castle's going to be maybe the reason why the Spurs win the title. If they, if the Spurs win the title with this group of guys at some point, Castle's obviously going to be a, foundational reason as to why that's a possibility. But, hey, I guess point being, we're scared of Darius Cuff now at this point. He is a baller and definitely, winning some of the tournament stock, the tournament stock market that plays out is definitely something that is in his favor. Alabama, though, to start this Texas Tech game is very, very strong. They have forced Texas Tech into a timeout 26-10 halfway through the first half. So looking like our guy, what do we got here? LeBaron Philon, right now projected 10th to Bama, or 10th to Milwaukee from Bama. Looks like he is starting off the night playing well, too. Let's see. I think he just got the 3 in the corner there. We can see if he has anything else at this point to match that so far. Okay, 5 rebounds and 3 assists and 7 points. Hey, yo. So he has been dominating the stat sheet early to start. 22, 3, and 4. Hey, yo, see what we mean? Now we're gonna start talking about how LeBaron, hey yo, LeBron, how our guy LeBron Philon, that's gonna be this guy from now on, chat. Hey yo, shout out our guy LeBron. He is, we're gonna talk about he's better than a Cuff. It is what it is. So whoever wins the tournament's gonna win our draft boards. It's not the first time that that's happened. I think Bama might be a little more talented than Arkansas, though I'm not. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me. But Aiden Holloway's pretty good, so I guess we recognize that name there. But now we have to go comps for Philon. They had him up over Amet though, so that is that, I guess, again, that lead playmaker ability. But Amet's shot making did look good tonight, so we're gonna have to, like we say, continue to see how that plays out. Supplementary handle creator, part-time bucket getter, chaser, defender, helper, general irritant is how they have him listed on defense. Alabama was much more of a gambler on defense when Alabama had Mark Spears. That's true. We did love the Mark Spears run at Alabama. That's why they have him drafted to Milwaukee, because they have him comped to Ryan Rollins. So that's why I guess Milwaukee would be potentially looking at him there. So on the Ringer draft guide, comps for our guy LeBron would be to Andrew Nembhard, Dennis Schroeder, Jeremy Lin, and Ryan Rollins. But Nembhard, Rollins, yeah, you see that kind of secondary creating guard that can score a little bit, play make a little bit, and maybe like a little bit of a taller, more athletic Trey Jones type of situation. I guess Trey Jones is like in that 6'3" range as well too. But 21 a game, I feel like that's a little bit of a better score than Nembhard was in college. Like, Nembhard obviously was a very, very productive player, for sure. But in which Ryan went to Gonzaga. I guess they both went to Gonzaga, right? But, oh, and he went to Florida as well, too. So, yeah, I was going to say, I thought he went somewhere else, but both are true. He went to Gonzaga. He went both somewhere else and Gonzaga, I guess. And he led the nation in assists in 21-22. So, yeah, again, much more playmaker focus. All right, let's led the conference in assists that year. And then, yeah, 12 points a game for Nembhard, which, again, that kind of lower scoring, good playmaking balance is kind of what his game is in the NBA as well, too. Like, he kind of is a, 14-6 type of guy. Ryan Rollins, 16 points a game in college. Like, it's kind of what he is in the NBA at his best as well, too. If this was his stat line in the NBA, 18.9, 47% from the field, maybe you'd want a little higher from three, but you can kind of see that that's how it would play out. So I think that he might be a little bit of a step up upside-wise from those guys as well, too, just looking at what that stat line is and what his scoring output has been for the year. I mean, I guess Schroeder, of course. It should be like International Schroeder. Hey, yo. FIBA World Cup Dennis Schroeder is the Phylon comparison there. I guess for weaknesses, maybe handle is strong, but will become exemplary when his physical challenges are laid out. We'll have to continue to work on hitting contested driving gaps low and hard, through inevitable contact. So we got likely best suited to feed off a bigger scorer creator because bigger, faster defenses will likely mute his effectiveness. Oh, chat. Hey, yo. So it's like he's good, but just it won't work in the NBA. That's not very encouraging. But depends on weaknesses, depends on movement to gain advantages because of his size and build limitations. Bigger dribble pull-up shooters and scorers who can operate inside the arc without having to put the ball on the floor. Much will always have ways to give him problems, limiting his switchability on the lower end of the positional spectrum. Has the ability and flexibility to be an agitator when chasing opponents through off-ball screens. I mean, as long as you're competing on defense, that's really all you can do there. A little Colin Sexton-y maybe on defense. A little like I don't know, better three-point shooting Colin Sexton. What was his three-point percentage at? Oh, no, that's right. He was at or was that was Ryan Rollins. That was in the 30s. Who's in the 30s? Ryan Rollins or LeBron? LeBron on 38.9% on almost 6 a game is not bad there. Texas Tech for 3. Oh, it spins out, chat. Hey, yo. It might not be meant to be. I think they subbed our guy out. He got his first half run there, and I think he's going to get a break. So now a little Aiden Holloway turn. He just missed a 3. It is what it is. We'll see if Texas Tech is able to make the push pause without him there. But yeah, and I guess like we said, all these guys are having positive tournaments as well too. And that is another thing that has been fun about this tournament is it does seem like, a lot of these stars have been the ones that have been obviously making the impact. Like last year, it was maybe a little bit of a rare case where you had both Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper both on the same team. And that one's obviously going to be weird because, you look at Dylan Harper on the Spurs, like it doesn't matter if that Rutgers team wasn't turning into wins. He's clearly going to be a guy that's going to continue to help the Spurs games actually turn into wins, and you're not going to want to necessarily go back and undo that draft pick at the moment. Still seems like the right move. But, and again, Caleb Wilson, like getting hurt, like who knows if North Carolina would have been a Final Four team or whatever. But, obviously a playoff contending type of thing that happened. So like we said, I guess, the list does dwindle down with Peterson and Dembasta both getting eliminated, but they both did have really epic performances. So it's not like they were absent from the tournament. Their impact was felt. Again, Boozer and Duke, they're going to continue to thrive here. Illinois and Houston are going to be matched up against each other, but, I mean, again, that's what you can do. The impact from those guys, again, is definitely there as well. Same with Burris from Arizona, a Cup from Arkansas, Luxembourg from Michigan, and I mean, like we're saying, Ahmet, maybe he climbs back up the board. Traditionally ranked a little higher, I guess, and then Falan. I guess having Sturts over a Met is a bit of a take. 6'4", 190, crafty offensive orchestrator. This is like the Peyton Pritchard pick right here. If he's not comped to Peyton Pritchard, I don't know anything. Oh, he's not. I don't know anything. Who is Serranis Jasevicius? I don't know. Colin Gillespie, CJ McCollum, and Landry Shamet. Hey, yo. You're taking Colin Gillespie, 13th overall, over, I guess, what do we got here for a Met? Would you rather have Colin Gillespie or Isaac Bonga? Hey, yo, Colin Gillespie or Jabari Smith, though? Like, this version of Jabari Smith is not bad. Noah Asenu is the best comp, though. And then I guess the Isaac Bonga comp fell over, so I don't know why that's... I don't know what the upside down comp means. Maybe that's just for looks. But I feel like it means something. It's like Isaac Bonga, but what is the what situation there? So Amask is often tasked with creating for himself within the Houston offense this season out of necessity and an indifference to his pedigree as a top high school recruit. I don't exactly blame Rick Barnes for treating a Met a 6'10", a 6'10" with graceful strides and excellent lateral fluidity. Hey yo, like a mulligan on Kevin Durant almost 20 years later. A treatment similar to what Ace Bailey saw at Rutgers last year. The difference is that Bailey made an impeccable first impression, whereas a Met struggled mightily with his shots. So again, we looked over at the right times where he was making a couple of nice looks, but there's still, there's still some glimpses who might be coming to the NBA level. Some of Met's most promising moments this season have come off the ball, being a big wing. And honestly, like, thinking about him in the draft too, that's how I've been kind of thinking about him the whole time, not having watched Tennessee. So thinking that, you know, the struggle in his game is that Tennessee was tasking him with too much. Like, to me, that's actually an okay weakness because I'm not drafting him to be, again, a lead guy. I want him scoring and playmaking off the ball. So maybe that, again, raises, you know, some personal draft value there. And that, again, goes for team-building need if you're going for, you know, some of these playmakers. But, yeah, you could see, again, like, early season, you know, the profile of a Met versus a Cuff and how, you know, guys like a Cuff and LeBron Ron have been playing, you know, better basketball so far. And Braden Burrius as well, too. You know, again, a lot of guards, which does make it interesting to have that type of positional depth. And that's already, obviously, like we're saying, a position in the league that is not struggling for talent, but the contracts and stuff, obviously, are... You know, you got to reset there at some point. The team building strategies do need the, you know, obviously the rookie deals at some point. But yeah, again, all the it seems like a lot of the top guys have been able to be impactful for this tournament, and not like we've had, you know, again, the randomness, like we keep saying, that has maybe presented itself in past tournaments. So we've got Duke and St. John's, Arizona and Arkansas as the final, as the Sweet 16, of course, starts to narrow itself down. Purdue, Texas, Michigan, I guess waiting to play the Alabama, Texas Tech winner, Iowa, Nebraska, Houston, Illinois, Iowa State, Tennessee. So, hey, yo, the way Alabama's looking right now is definitely not going to be fun for this Michigan matchup. And if anything, Michigan definitely has the most fun bracket this year. Like we said, the offense, most fun, you know, division this year of the bracket. The offense was insane in round one, and it's kind of kept up a little bit. I guess we got 79 from Tennessee, 82 from Iowa State, and, you know, Alabama starting off strong. 95 for Michigan. Michigan, that game did start off a little bit close. I mean, shout out to St. Louis for hanging in there for a while. And it was going to be like, okay, you know, again, the 1-9 drama is going to start now. But, yeah, by halftime, a little 9-point lead had kind of formed there. And obviously the steamroll effect of the second half definitely took over. And that is the fun thing, I guess, about this Michigan team, is it does have that feel of like the Michigan football teams over the past couple of years. Of course, when Harbaugh finally established himself as like a top team in college football there, where you wouldn't necessarily have the moments where, and I guess you would get them later in the game, but you wouldn't get like these first quarter, fourth quarter bursts of scoring where it's just like you look up and all of a sudden Michigan's up like 28-0, and now it's like, them destroying the team. They would even have, some of those early schedule games where it'd be like 21-3 at halftime. Obviously, good lead, but that traditional number 1, number 2 overall team, playing that week 2 game, again, you see Alabama sometimes like 35-0 is 38 to 40 points in the first half. It's like Michigan 17-7, and then they would have the steamroll effect in the second half, and then you look at the final score and be like, okay, there we go, 42-17, like they kind of got the lead, decisive there, 42-7, like they were definitely able to, again, get the margins of victory. And Michigan had margins of victory wise one of the most dominant, like we're saying, regular seasons of anybody in Big Ten history. But it is a little bit of a slower, takes a second to get the ball rolling type of a performance. So maybe again against one of these sort of offensive like heat check type teams that they may have to play later in the tournament, that will become a little bit of a factor. But obviously, on paper, the total points factor, the total points side of it, Michigan should be able to go toe to toe with any of these teams that they do match up against. And to see, of course, Lendenborg have a good on paper game again, had been a couple of games between the Big Ten tournament and the round 1 game of him being able to just, the mental of seeing the basketball go in, pause a bunch of times is important. Hey, you do need it. So he did get back to the 20-plus point mark there with 25. Mara, super efficient with his 7 for 12 performance, and him establishing and keeping Michigan in the game a little bit earlier on. And then McKinney, lighter attempts, but 3 for 4. The efficiency is still there as well too. So definitely, again, the end results have been encouraging for Michigan, but like we're saying, Alabama, the explosiveness right away, where they can immediately put the foot on the gas and have the offense start off incredibly hot. And maybe Michigan is able, with the defense and the effort, like Michigan is one of the best, like we're just gonna will this game to win it type of situations. Like they may not necessarily again have like the raw pause, like shot making ability of some of these teams, but they have the toughness to be able to get to the basket. They'll swarm around and get offensive rebounds, and they'll, really hustle and play hard on defense. And, that's going to take you a long way in college basketball. So if they are able to, at least get a couple of these teams out of rhythm early and not necessarily, again, have that jump start, then they will be able to, I think, be okay and have that snowball effect of being able to slowly win these games in a sense. But again, the offense in this division has been insane. So hopefully next week the rest is good and they'll be able to keep up. But yeah, it looks like, I guess, unless Alabama falls apart in the second half, that they are in a good spot here against Texas Tech. And UConn is another one, as like we're saying, they're not going to probably dominate teams over the course of the game, but they do have a little 7-point lead here versus UCLA. And, Dan Hurley can definitely close that game out there with that roster. So I think that's what we were looking at for the final results here for the Sweet 16. The bracket, I guess, did end up being somewhat okay in the end of the first weekend. I think we got it. 54%. We got into the top half, chat. Pause. It is what it is. At least at one point, we were in the top half after the first weekend. Shout out. So I guess, are we going to go, if UConn wins, we get that? And then we had Texas Tech. So we do need Alabama to fall apart. Maybe the 1-for-1 split will kind of keep us paused in the 54 range there. But this might be it. 54 might be the highest we do, honestly. Because, well, I guess we still have our Elite 8 teams in. So maybe the Elite 8 does okay for us. I guess Nebraska over Florida is not going to happen. But Nebraska over Iowa, maybe we were thinking kind of right there. Who's to say? But yeah, we'll be back Tuesday night. The Rem and Sam pod live here on the YouTube. Sundays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. So, if you joined us Friday for the March Madness live stream then, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we can't wait to see you guys, like we're saying, again on the Tuesday night live stream. I guess we won't have March Madness to watch along to then. So, we'll, probably, I assume I assume that we'll go back to watching a little NBA, but we've got some anniversaries to continue to celebrate, some movies, some albums, just, this some fun stuff, obviously, as the spring summer season gets heated up here on the Rem and Sam pod. And like we said, NBA playoffs, all that stuff is still in the works. So the Tuesday live stream will be a little bit of a time to catch up on that, and then we still got March Madness here for the weekend. So next weekend, if you missed the Tuesday live stream, we'll be back streaming the March Madness reactions then, so you can join us here, like we're saying, next weekend. Same bat time, same bat channel, talking March Madness, hanging out, watching the games, having a good time. Or, like I said, you can join us Tuesday night as well, too. If you just miss the Rem and Sam crew, the Rem and Sam gang, the Rem and Sam community so much that, you have to be with us on the Tuesday night live stream, guess what? Lucky enough, hopefully we'll be, hopefully we'll be here on the live stream. Lord willing, chat, we're able to make it to Tuesday, I guess, in times like these. But, shout out to a great opening weekend of March Madness, one of the great times of the year. The games, the excitement, it's always fun, and it looks like, we're having a fun tournament as well, too, this year, 2026. So, yep, like I said, we'll be back Tuesday night. Enjoy the next couple of days. We'll see y'all later. Peace.